The first taste of rare bourbon you finally got your hands on. That's nice. At Caskers.com, we make this experience easy. Caskers is a one-stop spirit curator with an impressive selection of exclusive, sought-after, rare, and household names in the realm of premium spirits and champagne. Discover the top flavors of the year now by going to Caskers.com and using code WELCOME10 for $10 off your first purchase. Get $10 off your first purchase with code WELCOME10 at Caskers.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Head there to check out exclusive podcasts like Talking Futurama, Talk King of the Hill, the What a Cartoon Movie podcast, and tons more.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello everybody and welcome to What a Cartoon, where sleep is good but TV helps your brain. I am one of your hosts, the candy-capped Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today as always?
Scoobily, scoobily, scoo, it's Henry Gilbert.
And this month's episode is all about the TV Funhouse episode, Christmas Day.
Oh, jingling, ting, ting, jingling, ting, 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 wing, bing, ging.
Enough!
Hopefully our listeners aren't saying that as we celebrate the holiday season once again by looking at a holiday show that's about 33% cartoon, so we're not breaking any laws.
Yeah, you know, it had as much cartoons as they could afford to put in it. Honestly, going over budget while still being a low-cost cable show.
And one of our personal favorite short-lived shows.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's big ones for comedy nerds like me and Bob is Comedy Central's TV Funhouse. This Christmas episode has been on my mind for many a year. I won't say I watched every single episode right when they aired, but I was a diligent watcher of it. I did watch the Christmas one the first time. And, you know, I was a big-time nerdo for all of the TV Funhouse and attached things to it, as I'm sure you were, Bob. So I was a big fan of this. And when I think of Christmas cartoons that I enjoy, I'd say a good chunk of the funny ones are usually written by Robert Smigel, or at least he produced them.
I was a big fan of this when it aired for 8 weeks across late 2000 and early 2001. Not just a watcher, but a taper. This was the year 2000 and early 01. We were still taping things on tape. It actually happened, people. I did a rewatch of this in the late aughts and really got into it again. And then it wasn't until I sat down to watch some of this with my wife of the show, Nina Matsumoto, when we're watching these things and it's all coming back to me. And it's like, oh, I have so much of this like even memorized. And some of the lines from the show are stuck in my head. One from this one, the line about turning whispers into screams, that's been in my head forever. The theme song pops into my head every 3 or 4 months. It's a great theme song. Unfortunately, very short-lived, but I think they did everything they really could with the premise in these 8 episodes.
I think so too. I hadn't watched a full episode in forever. I think I had pulled up clips from it many times and many individual sketches. And, you know, an early bonding moment with Bob for me was, I thought for a long time, this is how things felt before, you know, we all talk to each other on social media all the time. I thought I was the only person in my group of friends who knew Tingles the Christmas Tension. I loved it so much. And then I meet a cool guy named Bob Mackey in the games industry. And then I feel like I talked with you about it or something. And that's when I found out that the person who posted the best version of it that was on the internet was the person I was talking to about Tingles the Christmas Tension.
Yes, and that clip is still online 15 years later. Never been copyright struck or whatever, and I still watch it every Christmas. And now it's fun to watch in the context of this entire episode. And we should also point out that you and I were big Comedy Central heads of this era, and I felt like in the fall of 2000, that is when 2 of my favorite shows got canceled. That was Strangers with Candy and Upright Citizens Brigade. And I was like, oh man, these shows were so good and so ahead of their time. And then this came on, and I was like, I think everything is going to be okay. And the networks had its ups and downs, but this era was just like peak alt comedy and given like really high budgets for cable.
And these days, it feels like the network doesn't want to make new things, I think. They just don't, like, do stuff.
Is Comedy Central now, like, the Tosh.0 marathon network?
I think so. Well, it's also where, like, Beavis and Butthead technically airs there, also.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I totally forgot that's actually a Comedy Central show. And, of course, South Park, right? So I think it's
Yes,
mostly
yeah,
like South Park marathons and Tosh.0 marathons.
And I guess technically the Daily Show still exists, though Trevor Noah left it and they haven't replaced him. So
Yeah, but this period was great. I mean, like Jon Stewart had just taken over the Daily Show a year earlier. This was the season they were doing their indecision election coverage for the 2000 election. And we should point out at least that we can't talk about TV Funhouse without talking about Wonder Shows. And you know, if you asked a younger Bob, an angrier Bob in his 20s, which is the better kid show parody, I would be like, oh, Wonder Shows and hands down. After rewatching about half of the series, I'm like, it actually might be TV Funhouse. I kind of do like this end of history version of the kids show parody more than I like the raw post 9/11 mean awful version. I mean, awful in terms of like, we're going to horrify you by what we show you. I like what's going on here more than Wonder Shows, but I still love Wonder Shows. But I will say this series has less ironic racism, but still a little bit because it's the year 2000.
there's a little bit, but compared to Wonder Shows, and also not as much relaxed transphobia as one full episode of Wonder Shows.
There's not an entire episode about, here, let's be transphobic. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes, yeah. Which sucks. But
it's okay. I'm just gonna say I love Wonder Shows, and you had to be there. And when I tried going back to it with some people more than 10 years ago, and I thought like I'm feeling like shame and embarrassment telling people this show is so funny, you gotta see it. And then like the things unfolding in front of me, and I'm like, it was 2005. Things were different.
Yes, you start to feel like you're like, is this how my parents' generation felt when they were showing kids Animal House? And they're like, oh, wait a minute, uh-oh. You know, I still think I like Wonder Shows just ever so slightly more because I like the Puppet Pals more in Wonder Shows, especially Chauncey. Chauncey, I love him. He's so horrible and awful. But no, I love this show as well. And it also is connected to, as I learned from all of the history, it's connected to everything else we loved about 90s alternative comedy. Like, it is just a clear continuation of all of the 90s alt comedy we enjoyed into the 2000s.
Oh, yeah. I had not seen Mr. Show yet at this point when this was airing, but having been like online for a bit before the show started airing, I was aware of like all the connections coming together, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to see this show, because I loved SNL at the time and I love the segments that this show is named after, which makes this very hard to Google and look up. And I will tell people, our listeners out there, this series, it's on DVD, miraculously still in print. It's also all on YouTube. Just watch it on YouTube, and it's also all on archive.org. It's very easy to watch this series, and there's only 8 episodes.
They fly right by, too. I rewatched every episode and then every episode with a DVD commentary, and just like that, they just flew right by. Yeah, this is kind of brings together all of the alt comedy. I think when I first saw this, my friends had shown me Mr. Show, because I had an HBO friend who also, his family had early TV, well, it wasn't called TiVo, but DVR. They had early DVR, and so they would just show the sketches before they started getting put on YouTube. I became a bigger Mr. Show freak by the time the DVDs came out, but I could not identify all of the many Mr. Show people who were clearly working on the show, if you know the people who worked on Mr. Show. But I guess for this history, though, it really begins with one man and one man's love of the cartoons he grew up on, and also shitty puppets that shit or pee and poo. As the song goes. And that's Robert Smigel.
Yes, who we talked a lot about in our Mr. Show. No, sorry, not Mr. Show. The Look Well episode of Talking Simpsons.
Yeah, so that's why I was going to pick right up where we left off with him at Look Well. But yeah, we listened to the Look Well episode as we talk about how him and Conan O'Brien were very good bros working on SNL together. They then, during a writer's strike, did a sketch show together in Chicago along with Bob Odenkirk and many other people, Greg Daniels, a guy named Doug Dale, who is in this show as well. And so then they do Look Well. Look Well fails. Conan goes to work on The Simpsons as the only good writer and who wrote all the good scenes.
Right. We've covered all this in our series.
But meanwhile, Smigel goes back to SNL while also working on possible pitches for the 91-92 season. And he's working a lot with Adam Sandler and Chris Farley, Tim Meadows, Chris Rock. I mean, especially his work with Adam Sandler will pay off big time for him later.
As we're recording this, his new Netflix movie with Adam Sandler is currently live, the animated children's film. Is it called Leo?
Leo, about the lizard.
I'm an old lizard, or whatever, kind of. Like, his baby voice is aging as he gets into his 50s, so he has a new baby voice in this movie.
I think it's so funny that for Adam Sandler, when we were 10, he had like 8 voices he did on Saturday Night Live.
Okay,
And
wait, no,
all of
eight,
them
eight or 2?
Well,
Let's say
maybe,
3.
4. Okay, 3. There would be old and young variations on each of those 3, and then all of those became at least one movie, if not more.
I'm thinking of like basically all of his Weekend Update characters were his voices. We had like Canteen Boy became the Water Boy. That kind that kind of speech pattern.
Special young man.
Yes. Cajun Man, Opera Man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's it.
Oh, Bobby Boucher is Cajun as well, but also what he would do is he'd do that old man character with Chris Farley as the old lady, and then like shut up.
Oh
like,
yes, the the couple in the chairs.
Mm-hmm. But Robert Smigel, like he just that Leo movie, I bet 5 minutes of it costs more than the entirety of TV Funhouse,
which was an expensive show for Comedy Central in this time period.
So yeah, Smigel, he goes back for the 91-92 season at SNL, and then a crazy thing happens at the start of 1993. David Letterman quits his NBC show because he was runner-up to Jay Leno on The Tonight Show. Lots of people are being suggested for it, and unbelievably, Lorne Michaels is able to convince them to let a guy who has never had a TV show before, Conan O'Brien, film a trial show in April of 93. That gets approved, and when that gets sold and made official April 1993, one of Conan's first hires was his look-well pal, Robert Smigel, to be the head writer.
And we've talked about this before, but this is our generation's version of like seeing Monty Python on TV as it aired. If you were there and up way too late as an 11-year-old like me watching the first seasons of Conan, it was unlike any late night show you'd ever seen in your life. And I like that Team Coco, the YouTube channel, is now starting to put these online because some of these things are just buried deep in my head. And I'm thinking, well, this sketch did happen, but there's no way to verify it. And I really want to see it again.
Isn't that right? Cactus Chef playing We Didn't Start the Fire on a flute?
Well, thankfully, the Slipnuts, that clip is online, but that was much later.
I love the Slipnuts. The main middle Slipnut is a writer on TV Funhouse, John Glazer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, John Glazer.
But yeah, no, the venerated Conan staff would go on to many other things. One of the other top writers with Smigel was Dino Stamatopoulos, as well as Louis C.K., he was a key writer in that show, and he comes up many times in this research, unfortunately, but he was there.
He is not a cast member, though he is like a creative consultant on the show.
Yeah, basically, if you watch the very funny sketch that was basically a Sesame Street bit from TV Funhouse of what does a policeman do all day? And, he's like, he pushes the subway train all the way, and then he jumps around his office naked. And Louis C.K. was a co-writer on that.
Okay. So. Well, I do like the part about before he goes home, he shoots the governor.
Yes, I love that one. While being a head writer on it with all these guys, you can even see a spark of what is to come because in a December 1993 clip that's uploaded to YouTube, Smigel and CK appear in character, not playing themselves, as guests in like the third guest segment. And they are pretending to be dog experts. And they say, when your dog does this, what he's really trying to say is, and then Smigel starts talking in a Russian accent because it is his firmly held belief that all dogs speak in a Russian accent if you make up a fake voice for them, inspired by his grandparents who were Russian immigrants.
Thank you. Because I remember Smigel being on Conan for this show and explaining why all of his dog characters speak like this. It's because they see the world as this they're full of wonder and amazement at everything that's going on around them. And you can see that in the baby, the immigrant, and the guy on mushrooms.
That's right.
His view of Eastern European immigrants. The guy still is holding his suitcases.
You're right. In every shot, he still has this. He's like right from Ellis Island, like, ooh.
Yes. But when I was watching this with my wife, she knows about Triumph, the insult comic dog, and she loves Triumph. When she heard her second dog character talk like that, she's like, every one of his dogs sounds like that. She was so tickled by that.
It is a very wild Smigel-esque swing to be like, nope, every dog sounds like this. I'm not a good voice actor. Well, actually, I think he's really good as a voice actor, but he's like, I have no variations on Russian dog voice. They're just all going to sound like this. Oh, and also, Bob, you alerted me to another early first-year Conan sketch, Conan Babies.
That's right. This is something I would eagerly watch the Friday episodes for. And you can watch one of these online. It might have been the first one they did, but they basically did a parody of Hanna-Barbera or, cheap cartoons from the 70s and early 80s where Conan, Max, and Andy were like Archie-style baby characters who went on adventures. And they would usually incorporate an original song. And like they would cut away to the band playing the music much like they do in this episode and in the old Archie's cartoon. But Conan Babies would be a Friday segment often, and Conan would say, technically it's Saturday morning, so we made the first cartoon show for Saturday morning. And I think it's cute how TV Funhouse is the last cartoon show of the day.
It's really fun. You can see it right there, them bringing back all these ideas. And also, it has like guest stars in it, just like the Scooby-Doo movies. That's what they called them, Scooby-Doo movies. They meant a 1-hour episode of Scooby-Doo where Don Knotts was in it.
And I really love this era because everyone was on the same page. All of these like late boomer, early Gen X guys, they all knew what to make fun of, and that was crappy cartoons from the 70s. I mean, there are so many parodies of 70s cartoons in this alone. And then we see like 8 months later Adult Swim launches and everything it's built on is let's make fun of these old cartoons. And now it would be like making fun of cartoons from 1998. That's how the timeline has shifted.
It would be parodying Squiggle Vision. It would be the Dr. Katz parody show.
Or like, even later, because if you think this is 2000, the latest cartoon they're parodying is, maybe Squiggle Vision is fine. But boy, I liked when we were all on the same page, and now I don't know like what old thing we're supposed to make fun of now.
Yeah, that's the death of the monoculture, man. No, the kids don't grow up watching 80 hours of Hanna-Barbera crap all week long, or every single Looney Tunes short over and over and over again.
I mean, I never watched the Harlem Globetrotters cartoon. It was never made available to me, but I get the parody because I watched so many cartoons that were exactly like that.
Yeah, Hanna-Barbera made one type of cartoon. They just changed out the characters over and over again, but we didn't get to see, I would guess the Harlem Globetrotters, partially for the song that's in this very episode, wasn't put on Cartoon Network because they didn't have full rights to it like they do Penelope Pitstop or whatever. But yes, the Conan Babies, though, it is generous to call it animated. They really are not animated.
No, it was the same thing they did on, I would say, the first 10 years of Conan. Maybe this extended beyond that, where they would have a still drawing and in the manner of the Clutch Cargo cartoon, they would just have the live action footage of the mouth superimposed on the drawing, which was very cheap but also made things very funny. And if you watched old Conan, when he would talk to celebrities in quotes like Bill Clinton or Arnold Schwarzenegger, often played by Smigel, it would just be a TV comes down, it's a still picture of Bill Clinton, and then it's like Robert Smigel's mouth appears in the middle of the face.
His constant woo, whoa doggy, like he would just be screaming all the time.
That was Smigel though, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was almost always Smigel, I think. I mean, the one joke that stuck with me, it was late in him doing this, but it was when Arnold Schwarzenegger was running for the California governor, and he was talking about Gray Davis was who he was going against. He's like, he should be called Gray Pubic Hair Davis. What?
Well, he would often have to like kiss the TVs or feed them things.
Oh, yes,
I remember, man, again, I'm glad Team Coco is uploading more stuff. I just want it all. Just upload all the sketches. There's got to be thousands of them. Just make that your business until Conan passes away.
Conan and Smigel have very good sensibilities for comedy. They complement each other very well in the 90s. But also, another animated bit, and this is where another person worth mentioning in here comes in. The original Conan opening was animated by, in 1993, by somebody Smigel had first connected with in 1992 for a classic SNL sketch called Cluckin' Chicken. You remember that one, Bob?
Oh, yes. It's the head of the chicken that was just removed, telling you all about the food as it bleeds out.
Watching his body be cut into pieces. Like, I get seasoned to perfection. And he even talks you through shitting it out as well.
Yes. It is the Smigel thing of like, here's this thing you see all the time and take for granted. Now let's like really get into, an extrapolation of this idea. Like the food mascot who wants you to eat the food that is him.
Mm-hmm. At least that was the smart thing with Chick-fil-A. They go with cows that tell you to eat chicken.
That's the one time those Christians got something right.
The one good part of Christian humor. But yes, the Clucking Chicken ad is classic, and that was animated by New York-based animation veteran, big-name guy, J.J. Settlemeyer. So a quick bit about Settlemeyer. Born in 1956 in Chicago. All these guys, it's either New York or Chicago, I tell you. Well, actually, I believe Smigel's more of a Boston-y guy. But anyway, J.J. is from Chicago. He originally dreamed of becoming a comic artist. That was his dream. He was going to work for Marvel or DC, but he saw it was a very tight-knit group to get into. Meanwhile, animation was starting to grow and grow and grow in the 80s. He did in-between work as he trained in animation after going to school to be a comic artist. He worked on Strawberry Shortcake in the Big Apple City and several of the Berenstain Bears cartoons as well.
That poor man.
Yes, yeah. He also worked on early MTV idents and also some of those, I guess on Playboy TV, they would animate some of the Playboy cartoon joke comics they would do in the magazines.
Like the naked woman in the little cocktail glass kind of character?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Which we heard about from older boys. We don't know these things. But so, after collecting years of experience in the independent animation world in New York City, JJ and his wife, Patrice Settlemeyer, started JJ Settlemeyer Productions in 1991. They worked on a lot of commercials, but also early Nicktoons interstitials. If you know the ones, when I pulled up the reel that JJ Settlemeyer put online himself, I was like, oh, this is all the things I remember. Like, these were the things that showed before every Nicktoon of, the orange splat body, green head, guy painting. He's like, it's going to be Nicktoons, like, and it splats on the screen.
And you were showing me this reel they had online, and they also had, idents based on the original 3 Nicktoons. And it is them basically doing the style of Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy, all very, very different, but they nail all of the styles.
It's incredible they even got Ren and Stimpy farting in the bubble bath correct, like as in on model. And also, Bob, I think you definitely talked about this in our Beavis and Butthead episodes, but I've now read Settlemeyer's side of being the first studio for a lot of the early Beavis and Butthead episodes, which he did not enjoy doing himself because he said that it didn't work well. Like he said, the company got too big and he was feeling he was losing a lot of his creative power. He was just like following orders to produce Beavis and Butthead cartoons.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It wasn't until they started using Rough Draft, I think, that they actually nailed down the look of the show and made the characters consistently on model.
Mm-hmm. I think Judge was though. Most of the Settlemeyer ones are not on the DVDs or kept held in high esteem by Mike Judge, I think. But so in 1992, that's when JJ was first contacted by Smigel because he was like, I want animation for my SNL sketch. And because it's Saturday Night Live, they can spend big money on good animation done quickly. This is how JJ said that it seemed like this would be the first and last time he would work with Robert Smigel. Here's how he described it. Robert had never done animation before, and these were the days of traditional ink and paint on acetate celluloid. To make a long story short, he was asking for changes on previously approved material, specifically Clucky's eyes, and I lost it on him. Totally went ballistic. Regardless of how well the film turned out, I figured Robert and I were on either side of a burning bridge.
Yeah, I mean, there comes a point when, animation people work with non-animation creatives where they have to tell them, this is not made by elves. There was even a breaking point on The Simpsons that we mentioned a few times where David Silverman had to, say, we have to stop the changes at this point of the production because we cannot do last-minute things anymore.
That's I remember Brendan Small said he learned that as well early on where he, basically the term he heard on home movies was like, but it's already been approved, which is like if you see a piece of art and say, well, wait, I don't like that. Could you change that? They say, well, it's already been approved, which is their way of saying you will cost way too much money and loss of time if you try to change this thing now. You shouldn't have approved it.
I say, hey, if you want to change a scene in home movies, dig around in your couch.
But then when Settlemeyer came back the next year to work on Conan's opening or to, pitch himself to do it, he said to Smigel, do you really want to do this again? I said really awful things to you. He gave me this strange puzzled look and said, well, everybody says that to me. So on the commentaries, Dino Stamatopoulos has some fun saying to Smigel's face, you were an annoying perfectionist working on this show, and it wasn't fun.
At the same time, though, Dino Stamatopoulos seems like An interesting man to work with, based on the things I know about him that he's very public about.
Yes.
And
yeah,
also based on all of his work to date.
It's I think part of the fun Dino is having there is that, like, I think he knows he is the last person to talk about what is professionalism in an office.
Yes.
The Cluckin' Chicken works out for them, as does the Conan thing. Then he starts to build out his studio, and by 1995, Settlemeyer's getting so in demand, especially when they do a commercial for Volkswagen, which lovingly recreates Speed Racer. And when I saw that one on his reel, I was like, holy shit, I remember this. Like, they got at least the original Speed Racer voice. I think Billy West is doing Pops, but it's like, Speed Racer's Mach 5 is broken. Drive the Volkswagen, Speed.
It was upon this reviewing that I watched one of the Wonder Man sketches, Wonder Man cartoons, and realized, like, oh, they're doing the Fleischer Superman down to him winking at the camera at the end. They can't capture the same frame rate and rotoscoped quality of the original, but they're still doing that style perfectly within their budget.
Except he's winking while he's nailing some lady
Yes,
he tricked.
After killing her boyfriend.
Yes. Yeah. So, yes, that's where Settlemeyer was at by the mid-90s. After a rocky couple years on Conan, meanwhile, Smigel turned down a chance to return to a major gig at SNL because he was offered to do a primetime sketch TV show, which is a rarity, is still a rarity to this day. And it was going to be starring somebody that couldn't possibly fail, Dana Carvey.
Right. Yeah. So I forgot this is also part of the DNA of TV Funhouse, and I completely forgot about Robert Smigel's connections with that sketch show.
Yeah, he was the head writer on it. There's entire documentaries you can watch about what a massive fiasco it was. It is so interesting. I was there night one to watch. I don't think I watched many episodes after, but I think all of America saw Clinton feeding dogs with his nipples and dogs and cats, which live animals, that's live animal puppet stuff. That's TV Funhouse.
And weren't some of the first shorts on that Dana Carvey show?
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. So the Dana Carvey show, not going so well. And also many great writers on that. And then Smigel, he's writing sketches and he thinks of, what would be funny is a comedy. Oh, and also John Glazer was a young writer. One of his first jobs was writing for the Dana Carvey show. But Smigel had this great idea, because he had cast two people he knew as very funny improvisers in Chicago, Steve Carell and Stephen Colbert. And he said, I think there's a funny idea for what if superheroes were distractingly homoerotic with one another, and if both of these guys named Steve played them.
Okay, thank you. In the back of my head, I thought of throwing out the idea that this was on Dana Carvey's show first, but something about it seemed wrong. But no, it originated there and then moved to SNL.
Yes, the original Ambiguously Gay Duo sketch aired on the second episode of the Dana Carvey show. I believe it's the Mug Root Beer episode of the Dana Carvey show. And yes, Smigel worked very closely with Settlemeyer on it. Settlemeyer is basically co-creator on it because Smigel gave him the script, and then Settlemeyer in his studio boarded it, designed every character, laid it all out. And it was Settlemeyer, I think, who found the very specific Green Lantern Filmation cartoon and just redrew some of the scenes of gay posing in it.
Now, I don't know how well it has aged, especially if you happen to be gay, but I remember finding it very funny, and my mom in particular just screaming and crying when those shorts would come on. She loved them so much. With laughter.
Yes, no, I always thought they were funny then, and I've rewatched them somewhat recently. I think I did find in my research, Smigel saying in an interview, we probably wouldn't do it now because things have just changed so much that even people going like, I think they're gay, is like, well, characters wouldn't say that now, or the tone feels different. But both him and Settlemeyer said, like, the point of them is that they, like, everybody else is obsessed with their sexuality. They don't care. Like, and they're just like, they're just trying to save the day while hugging each other tightly.
Yeah. What's everybody looking at?
Yes,
was one of the common catchphrases. And I remember as those shorts would go on to SNL, they would start making more jokes about how weird it was that the villains were obsessed with their sexuality.
I mean, I think one of my favorite reaction shots is when they have to, they hop on each other's back, or no, he does say, come on my back. I think he does say that one time. But when Ace and Gary are flying together, they are fighting an ice monster, and they literally fly up through a crack in his butt. And that's when everybody is just in shocked, stunned silence. And Ace and Gary go, "What? What's everybody looking at?"
And when you get to the, I don't know if, I mean, you watched the entire series again. I'm sure when you got to the Jokamol section, you're like, well, this is Ambiguously Gay Duo, but what they can get away with on cable compared to on NBC. And I don't think I watched any of TV Funhouse with my mom, but when I was rewatching the Jokamol thing with my wife, I remember my mom like screaming and crying with laughter over that too.
The vaginal one eating a full cat, I was like, wow.
And then so if I can explain this for a second, the Joe Camol thing, which I encourage all of you to go, I think the episode is called Mexican Day. It is basically Pokemon, but with Joe Camel characters. And the added like extra joke on top of that is that it's very sexual, like sexually in terms of like subliminal advertising. So, and they go really far.
Yes, there's one that is a big pair of boobs, but the vagina one is the most shocking. Well, you know, the Joe Kamal that sneezes toy, that also was pretty shocking too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Again, like with this show and even with the SNL shorts, I loved watching these because it felt like they were getting away with something that they could never do in a live action sketch.
Oh yeah, or on network TV either. The only one, this is getting ahead, but the only one they had to edit after the first airing because it too disgusted the creatives was Porn for Kids, which was basically they seemed to find a real 70s or 80s porno, and it is the first like 5 seconds where a guy is about to tell a woman to have sex with him, and then the last 5 seconds where it's like, well, I better wrap it up for the day. And they called it Porn for Kids. Like, finally, porn for kids. And they have a bunch of kids singing porn for kids, porn for kids. One of the heads of the network hated it so much that they could only re-air it as porn for everyone.
I enjoy the edginess of the original joke, but I think the intent still carries through, even when it's censored a bit.
It does remind me of Wonder Shows in Beat Kids as well.
Yes.
Actually, that's another recurring thing on the commentary is a couple times Dino tries to say like, oh, Wonder Shows and ripped us off. And then Smigel says, well, you know, those guys actually did have their pilot made around the same time as we did. So I don't think so. And Dino has to go like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that is true. And both shows have like extreme New York City energy, which is something that is kind of rare on TV that I do like about TV Funhouse.
In this episode alone, the screaming on the street, I was like, oh, this is just Clarence did this. Like, this is Clarence on Wonder Shows. But yeah, so J.J. Settlemeyer loved designing all the characters for Ambiguously Gay Duo. And even though Dana Carvey's sketch show was brutally canceled, the sketch there in 1996, that is when Smigel found new life as a writer at Saturday Night Live because he got a deal Lorne Michaels likely would give very few people, which is much more creative freedom to do one-ish sketch a week that would be either animated or filmed. It would be even presented as kind of Smigel's Funhouse, perhaps. It would be, you know, let go my show. And then the Saturday TV Funhouse, that would be how the sketches would be presented.
And you could tell that as these sketches would continue on throughout the years, how much the audience would light up, the live audience, upon hearing the theme and presumably watching this on like tiny monitors in front of them.
And it's always fun to see them playing them again on YouTube because they keep the title card from the original every time. And so you see whatever celebrity it was that was on the episode. And it makes you like, oh, this was the Britney Spears episode or whatever. Here's how Smigel described the setup. It's great. On the one hand, I have this freedom. It's agonizing on the other because I put way more pressure on myself, drive myself crazy, reject myself, and curse myself out. And he also said, their satirical power as comedic source material comes from playing it really straight, subversively mocking them while being really faithful to them. In addition to Ace and Gary, it's where there were things like The Ex-Presidents, Fun with Real Audio, Tidy, The Disney Vault, Unsold Cartoon Pilot Shack, which is where the Globetrotter short from this episode comes from, The All-New Adventures of Mr. T, I Need Work.
Right.
So many classics.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite one has to be the Disney Vault one because now whenever I see Mickey Mouse, I think, you were supposed to be funny?
Yeah. I love, he wouldn't sell. Or the listeners, you're just going to hear us say all the sketches we liked. But no, I also loved in that one, sorry. I would think there's probably a lot of people who think that the lines sung in Zippity Doodah are actually the real lines from Zippity Doodah now, not fake ones.
Unfortunately, I do think of the TV Funhouse lines whenever the few times I hear that song again in the wild.
We're not going to sing it.
No. Satire.
Yeah. But also, yes, I mean, it was loved by nerds all over the world because I loved it because it was warmness towards the pop culture it was parodying, but also brutally savage to celebrities. Like, he was so mean to... I'm so used to today, like, people are just so nice to celebs, or celebs all want to be in on the joke. I much preferred him going like, Kathie Lee Gifford sucks. Like, let's all laugh at her. You know, maybe it was mean to be mean to Martha Stewart, but I'm tired of celebrities being in on the joke.
They mainly don't do the celebrity stuff on the Comedy Central version, but they do some pretty mean stuff with like the task force of celebrities who are all on drugs trying to solve crimes. Yeah. I think it's Anne Heche, R.I.P., Margot Kidder, and then is it Robert Downey Jr.?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's funny, Robert Downey Jr., one of the biggest, most famous people on the planet now, while meanwhile the other two are dead. No, yeah. Oh, well, and also the Stedman cartoon, brutal to Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, we need to be meaner to celebrities. I feel like it's an era that's long past, and maybe we overdid it. I mean, South Park, that's kind of was one of their gimmicks in the beginning, and they're still doing it because they don't really ever need to work with anyone else. But everyone else has kind of dropped it.
Now, I do think that, like, you know, there were definitely bad things to that back then of, like, everybody was too mean to, you know, child actors or child pop stars who were already being abused by doing their jobs. Like, I do regret that, but I don't know. Why not just be mean to Tom Cruise? Why do you gotta be like laugh along with him? How about we just be mean?
Yeah, he can take it.
Yeah, same with Oprah. But anyway, so yes, as Settlemeyer and Smigel worked together so much, they made sure that JJ even got clear credit in every sketch they would do, because they would get their own set of credits after the sketch instead of at the Good Nights on Saturday Night Live. JJ wasn't the only guy who worked on it. He also started working with two guys, David Wachenheim and Robert Marionetti, who would go on to be the animation creative directors for the Comedy Central show. JJ actually was lightly involved in the show. I think he did the opening, but otherwise it was Wachenheim and Marionetti who oversaw a lot of the animation for it, or oversaw the subcontractors, the many subcontractors they worked with on this. So yes, this is also, though, where Smigel got some of his bad habits, such as he described one time basically finishing a sketch to air on SNL 3 hours before airtime.
Oh God! Well, I have to I'm guessing when did the animation come in, or was it just a sketch? It was a live action sketch.
The specific one he's talking about with the 3 hours thing was an animated one. So basically, it was they got the animation back kind of like Thursday or Friday, but then the color correction and final tweaks he wanted to do in editing, that wasn't completed with a file he could give them to air until 3 hours before.
Wow.
But yeah, I still think they were some of the best sketches of its time, for sure, including also Conspiracy Theory Rock, which was one of those ones you'd see online of like, banned sketch, did it tell too much truth?
Right, yeah. And I think when the do you know the years that the TV Funhouse sketches ended on SNL? Like how far they went into the SNL timeline?
Yeah, it regularly was around from 1996 to 2008, and then they also did an Ambiguously Gay duo in 2011, but that's basically when it ended.
Okay, so like 12 years of original sketches and cartoons.
Yeah.
Wow.
Including he did it the year that this show, that the Comedy Central TV Funhouse aired as well. He still did about as many sketches for SNL that year, too.
I guess it's only fair that they borrowed one of them for this episode.
One last component in the pre-selling of this show is that Smigel also created Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. That's all podcast unto itself, but basically his wife gifted him a dog puppet, and he said, quote, "I played around the house with them for months. She tolerates this kind of idiocy, and that's why we're a happy couple. We both just laughed at how unrealistically cute and misrepresentative of the dark world they are, but we also love them because they're so cute and misrepresentative."
Yeah, I mean, Triumph does make an appearance on this series, but it doesn't really matter because every dog sounds like him and is Robert Smigel.
Yeah, I mean, Stogie, or no, that's
Bogey?
Bogey is
And
Triumph also.
Zabu? Is it Zabu?
Zabu is kind of Triumph also. Yeah, the Doctor's Triumph.
Zabu is like a more manic Triumph.
And of course, Triumph's big debut was when he went to the Westminster Dog Show and pissed off everybody there, and he had to sneak into the next one. I do think a lot of what Smigel loves about Triumph is not just that he gets to say like Borscht Belt style comedy, insult comedy, but also that it is kind of a prank, or not kind of. They are pranks. They are like chaotic, and he sneaks in places and fucks with people.
What I like about this show, so we appreciate good puppet work. Check out our Muppet Christmas Carol episode we just put out. We love the Muppets. We love the craft that goes into making them and moving them and how difficult it is. But I also love shitty puppets. And I like how bad the puppets are here, both in terms of their design and how badly they're puppeteered. To the point where you often see the hands and the arms of the puppeteers, and it doesn't matter. It's part of the joke.
It's even better it's even crappier on Conan when he's basically filming it live and like a cigar falls out of Triumph's mouth and his hand picks up the cigar and puts it back in his mouth.
And I think for us, the best Triumph bit was the, what's it, Star Wars Episode 2 premiere?
It's Episode 2, yep.
Yeah, back when you could make fun of people for liking Star Wars.
He said so many funny lines, but I love when he said to the pregnant woman, like, after she gives birth, that'll be the last time he sees female genitalia.
Yes. And that poor child is now,
22, I think.
22? Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Whew.
What a legacy, though. I'd love to know that Triumph mocked me before I was born.
There's so many great there's a million great Triumph ones, but yeah, he loved the pranks of it. He also, another one he loved to do, he mocked the Pets.com dog and said that he was ripping him off, and Pets.com tried to sue Conan and they went bankrupt before the lawsuit completed.
Also, was the Pets.com dog Michael Ian Black?
It was.
Okay.
It was.
And that's the last I'll ever talk about that guy for the rest of my life.
But yes, the Triumph was a big hit on Conan, and he was loving being this little puppety dog. And so, of course, with all these popular things Smigel is doing, he's pitching, what if this was just a full TV show? What if you took my Triumph puppet and then my cartoons I did on SNL, combine them together and make it into a TV show? So he was pitching it around. And there's not a ton of details of this on the DVD, but they do say in 99, they filmed-ish a pilot for Fox. They had a pilot presentation for Fox, and I do believe the intro to this was at least partially done for the Fox thing, which is why it is by J.J. Settlemeyer and features all of the SNL TV Funhouse characters who you will not see on Comedy Central.
It is a bit of a bait and switch, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, I would bet they animated that intro under the idea of like, well, and of course these characters can appear on Comedy Central, and instead, understandably, GE is saying we don't want our characters appearing on the Viacom Comedy Channel. We own these characters.
It's weird, like, well, not weird, but it makes sense. Like, Comedy Central was picking up a lot of shows Fox didn't want. Like, Reno 911 was a Fox pilot.
Oh, yeah.
And so was this, and it's all happening in the early aughts. So I guess Fox was trying to not adhere to its old brand. It's like, no, we're the American Idol network now, and The Simpsons is here, I guess.
Well, I remember hearing of that era in general for Fox, which is full of, this is a pilot that they didn't even make his show, but then they had like a million shows that went one season, and then you'd buy it on DVD and everybody would say, Fox, bring it back. Why'd you? But Fox would take big swings on things. Then they cancel them very quickly. But they did take big swings around this time. It fails out at Fox. They take it to Comedy Central. Comedy Central is interested, and they're going to make it even more filthy. And I think it was probably better for them because they got to be the big fish, they're still not as big as South Park, but definitely Smigel is a big enough deal then that he's one of a bigger fish in the Comedy Central pond.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure often the talent they're working with are people getting their shows for the first time, like the South Park guys or the UCB people, or, I mean, Strangers with Candy, it was all from people from a sketch show that had failed 3 years before.
Right. Yeah.
So people that were happy for the opportunity, not someone coming from network TV who could basically walk if you wanted to.
And Dr. Katz was about what they spent on animation in the pre-South Park days as well. He sells 8 episodes to Comedy Central. He hires on Dino Stamatopoulos and John Glazer, who had worked with him on Dana Carvey Show. Dino is fresh off of Mr. Show. We talked all about that earlier in the year on What a Cartoon. He also hires from Conan O'Brien Tommy Blacha, who that's somebody I want to know more about.
Oh, no, it's funny because I'm watching this
And I hear this lobster character. He sounds like this.
and I'm like, okay, I've heard this voice before because my wife and I are watching a lot of Metalocalypse. And yes, he is the voice of both Toki and Murderface on Metalocalypse. And he's also the second creative lead on that show with Brendan Small, Tommy Blacha. So he's doing puppet work, he's doing voice work on this show, and then in 6 or 7 years, he'll be working on Metalocalypse with Brendan Small. But he has a very interesting comedy career and background, Tommy Blacha.
Yeah, he was also head writer on the Scott Gardner created Moonbeam City as well. Gardner really wanted to work with Tommy Blacha knows his stuff. I love TV Funhouse. Scott is an SNL Conan kid just like us, and of course he'd want to work with Blacha. Also, Tommy Blacha spent years as a lead writer for WWE programming as well.
Ooh, okay. I either didn't know that or forgot that, but surprising.
So if we can ever get Tommy Blotch on here, I'll try to limit my wrestling questions to 10 minutes. If we get an hour.
I've suddenly become a Metalocalypse fan in 2023. I'd be like, can you record a voicemail message for me as Toki?
I'd want it as the Hank the Lobster from this. No, actually Hank is one of the grossest characters in the show.
And he's not in all of it like the other Anapals.
His introductory joke in the previous episode is that he is a necrophiliac and fucks a dead lobster on screen.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
And somehow Wonder Chosen is dirtier and darker than this show.
Also, on the another writer on it is a young writer named Andy Breckman, who would go on to create Monk.
Oh, wow. I was a Monk, casual Monk fan in the early aughts. I think I'd appreciate it a lot more now that I now have become a full mystery fan, but I did enjoy that and Tony Shalhoub, for the first time in his life, not playing Foreign Man.
Yes. And also consider Downey, Kidder, and Haish, and also the Stedman cartoons are parodies of sort of mystery things. Both were written by Breckman, so he's kind of showing his the skills he'll use on Monk on these sketches. But yes, also another writer who gets he basically, this cartoonist gets his own episodes within episodes like TV Funhouse did on SNL, and that's Michael Kupperman, who he did 2 cartoons in the 7th and 8th episode, including my favorite cartoon ever. It's right below Tingles, but it is gonna break you down to cubes.
Yes. I, again, one of those things that's just in my head from the show for the past 23 years is I'm gonna break you down into cubes. The Italian Picasso ranting about cubes.
Get out your brushes and your paint tubes and knock them into little cubes. Yes, yeah. But yeah, the main voices and actors on the show were Robert Smigel, Dino Stamatopoulos, Tommy Blacha, and John Glazer as most of the puppet pals. Brian Stack did Whiskers in the first episode, and they joked that they thought he didn't do it good enough, and they stopped using him. I also think he was probably too busy.
Yeah, also the voice is like, I'm a cat, meow. It's the easiest voice to do. And Dino, he plays Chicky, correct?
Yes.
I feel like knowing about Dino Stamatopoulos and his wild life, so much of what the Anapals do has to be autobiographical in the tiniest bit of the way, especially this episode with all the drug use.
Yes.
He's talked about that a lot. He wrote the Drugachusetts sketch on Mr. Show.
The drug use and sex work gags in this show all make me like, well, I know this about okay, these are public facts Dino's talked about, and I do not say these to shame him. These are interesting facts about him. But in the Triumph episode, Chicky marries a sex worker who he had been with. In real life, I believe around this time or soon after, Dino Stamatopoulos marries his dominatrix. Talk about this again. I'm not saying this to mock him, but this is just a fact of his life. But no, I think you're right, Bob. I think also too that Smigel even says, he doesn't get into specifics, but on the commentary he does say, oh, Dino, you taught me about a lot of filthy things I did not know. Like, you made me filthier. He says that, like, for example, the example he says is, I didn't know what a pearl necklace was until you told me that sex term.
How innocent. And then you would see, I mean, I'm sure you're going to talk about it, Henry, but Dino's future works, I feel like this is the launching pad for things like Moral Oral and Frankenhole and things like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Tingles, Dino wrote Tingles, and that is a Moral Oral scene.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
This was a launching pad for lots of these guys, for sure. Even though it lasted, like, top 6 months of filming, this was a major moment for so many people in this, including... This was definitely the biggest on-screen role for improv performer Doug Dale. So Doug Dale, he was one of the big names in Chicago improv in the mid-'80s. He was there with Carell and Colbert at the same time. And he's there for the full commentaries. He's very funny. He tells a heartbreaking story about how in 1985 he auditioned for SNL. He says that he was in Lauren's office, playing pool in Lauren's office, and he was told... Well, better start looking at apartments, buddy. We're going to be you're it. You're on. Like, he had gotten a soft, you've got the job, and then he finds out you did not get the job. And he would have been on the 85 season and probably fired like most people from the 85 season. But still, how do you ever move on with your life from that?
Yeah, I remember this guy being very funny on this show, but I have never seen him before or since, and I was wondering, like, did he do something? Is he alive? And then I looked him up, and I was like, oh, he's fine. He's just not, a face you see. And given when this was produced, I'm wondering, like, oh, could Bob Odenkirk have hosted this show as well? Because it feels like the segment he hosts is a bone he's being thrown by one of his many funny friends during a very hungry time in his life, where I assume right now they're writing Run Ronnie Run and thinking like, oh, this could be the future of Mr. Show, just a series of great movies, and not seeing the dangers ahead in the next, let's say, 8 years until he starts being on Breaking Bad.
It is so funny that Bob Odenkirk just wrote a full episode or a full sketch and just starred in it. It's in the 8th episode. Also on the DVD, they have a second sketch. He did 2 sketches, but they didn't get the second one on. Maybe he didn't finish it in time. I don't know. But it wraps up his What Do We Know character, who basically is Terry Twilstein. I mean, it's his British guy voice.
Yeah, like the British fop.
Yes. But yes, Doug Dale, though, you're right. Didn't do much otherwise. If you look at his most recent voice work, it's doing the first 2 Hotel Transylvanias. He's given a couple token voices in that. Smigel's watching out for him. Makes me want to put a pin in, like, we should do the first Hotel Transylvania sometime, because Smigel's the lead writer on it, and it's directed by Gendy Tartakovsky, and it actually is good.
Yeah, it was on the Halloween poll, and I thought it was going to win, but that's when Paranorman won. But I'm happy that it did, because I never would have watched Paranorman. The Hotel Transylvania was on my radar and has been for a very long time.
But it might be, who knows, maybe next Halloween?
Well, anything's better than Corpse Bride. We apologize profusely.
Their favorite thing to do with Doug Dale, of course, was to dress him up in ridiculous outfits, humiliate him, or make him walk around outside in New York City in his underwear.
Yeah, he's like half naked for most of the show, I would say.
I mean, they see his hairy shoulders and they're like, we got to show this to the world. Yeah. And, of course, the main composer of the show is Mark Rivers, who you probably know as the writer of the theme for Mr. Show. And also he worked on Eagle Heart, Moral Oral, Oh Hello, lots of comedy classics.
Yeah, I saw he was a writer on this show, too.
Yeah, I wonder if that was... some of these credits are vague, and I didn't hear on the commentaries what Mark, like, a sketch he wrote. I think he maybe helped them write the songs that are in this, and maybe that got him the writer credit. But yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because one thing I wanted to bring up, Henry, is something I was watching these credits very closely, after watching this Christmas episode, and one thing I saw was additional music by Adam Schlesinger, and he is the lead of the band Fountains of Wayne, or he passed away in 2020, more on that later, but... I think of this theme song all the time. It's like, oh my God, the song is so catchy. I think about it, I would say every couple of months it'll pop into my head and won't leave. And then I saw he has written music for the show, and I'm wondering if he is part of this theme song, because it seems like something he would write. Based on the songs for hire he basically wrote up at this point in his career, it sounds like an Adam Schlesinger song.
I agree, but I did miss that. But you're right. It does sound like how he wrote, the Josie and the Pussycat songs songs that are in that 2001 movie.
And if you remember the movie That Thing You Do about the 60s band, he wrote all the music for that too. So it feels like this is in his wheelhouse, and he was known for writing like really catchy songs for hire. And he passed away. He was one of the first notable COVID deaths back when we had no idea what was going on. This is like April 1st, 2020. Terrifying time to be alive. And I see the news that he passes away, and everyone is like, what is this disease? I'm terrified. This is why we were washing our groceries.
Oh man, that's I totally forgot that guy died and was a COVID death, an early COVID death, man. That's a bummer. Why couldn't it have been Donald Trump? I tell you, why not?
He had that potion that made him stronger than ever.
But yes, one thing I learned from the DVD is that the show was constantly over budget, which they jokingly said it was because Smigel is a perfectionist. But they also said that the thing that makes it look cheap as a joke was actually what made it incredibly expensive, which is Smigel thought, we're going to get live animals on this mixed with the puppets. That will be funny. And it'll be even funnier because the live animals, we won't even have to make them do things or have them do tricks. They're just going to be still. Try to make an animal be still when you want it to be. That doesn't happen when they film things. So every episode took way longer to film and cost way more money.
I love the real animal aspect of this show. It's something that you have never seen before or since, just the mingling of real animals and puppet animals constantly. I do love how often the animals look bored, just especially that chocolate lab that's always hanging around. He's always like asleep on something. And when it's time for him to like leave the scene, you can see the leash being pulled, and he just like gets up and starts walking away. So they're not trying to hide the artifice of this is just a dog that's on the set. I kept trying to find this oral history of the show. I remember it came out maybe in 2020 when the show was 20 years old. I wish I could find it, but I can't find it for the life of me. I don't know if it was like Uproxx or Vulture or one of those sites, but I do remember the sentiment being like, we could have made more, but it was such a pain in the ass that we didn't want to. And I remember an anecdote about Dino Stamatopoulos getting goose shit in his mouth.
That is this episode.
Okay,
it
thank you.
It happens in this episode.
Yes. I never heard the commentaries or anything, but I remember that being an anecdote that he told in that oral history. Sorry.
No, yes, it was so hard. Everything took them too long. Smigel also said that the animal wranglers should have been called animal havers, and that they were mostly pretty unprofessional and jerks. It's like they just happen to own animals that they somehow can legally rent out as actors and things. And yes, also too that he joked that if you watch the episode that follows this one, it's the one where the Anipals are all in a steam room the entire episode and go nowhere and do nothing. And that is because they were way behind.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there was a outside of the show explanation for that.
Yeah, basically what happened was in the previous episode to this one of Chicky's kids joins a cult. They build an entire cult like church room, and then they're told like, that was extremely expensive. You've got to use this set like 3 more times. And so they say, this could look like a steam room. So we'll just have them sit in a steam room and they'll say their New Year's resolutions for the whole episode. And then at the end, they're all going to show their dicks.
Right. Okay. I did not hit that one in my rewatch yet.
All the guys eventually relax and like, hey, you know what? Let's all show each other our dicks. And then in comes a real horse, and you don't actually see a horse penis. But the joke is the horse unfurls, and that's when all the guys put their towels back on because they now feel inadequate. I also think, too, that Smigel was probably used to like, if I go over budget, Lorne Michaels gives me more time or money. And he couldn't really do that on this. Also, another part of their crunch was their Robert Goulet Triumph Atlantic City episode was originally planned as 1 episode, and they turned it into a 2-parter because they're like, we literally can't film more. We just have to make the story of this cover 2 parts.
That is hilarious. This 8-episode series has a 2-parter.
Yes.
And essentially, the steam room has the framing device of a clip show, but it's not a clip show.
Yes, yeah, that was all the rage back then of the fake clip shows too.
Yes, actually, now I bring this up every time I bring up old Conan, but once again, I must point out that Conan did a kind of a clip show as a normal late night show where he got locked in a meat locker on the stage with somebody.
Right.
It might have been Gilbert Gottfried. I can't remember, but he basically did that. And it's one of those things where I want them to post this online because I can't remember if the clips were real or if they were fake the clips they made up, the things that didn't actually happen. I think it was actually the latter, where they had a fake clip show. It seems like something Robert Smigel would love to do. It's like, what if we did a clip show on late night TV? That's crazy enough, but also the clips aren't real.
God, you're really hitting it there, but I don't remember all the details either. I hope somebody is if not yet, somebody needs to upload that to YouTube.
And I think like Smigel is really good at taking a funny idea and then pushing it to a level that you haven't seen in even small ways. Like with this show, the idea of a kid show parody is funny enough with these like rude animals, but I love the high level concept. As soon as the show starts, the animals leave.
Yes.
And Doug is just alone having to fill the time out as best he can. He never actually hangs out. He's only there with Zabu, whatever the dog's name is that's chasing his tail.
The worst Anapals, or also the snake who's going to cough up what's ever in his stomach, and it's just so he can, for like 2 minutes straight, dry heave on television.
Mice again.
Yup. That snake is also one of my other favorite DVD commentary moments of Dino being a little stinker, because the voice that Smigel does for that snake, who's like, oh, no, that Smigel says that it's him imitating how Adam Sandler would make fun of Judd Apatow's voice. and then Dino says, oh, no wonder I hate this character. And then Smigel goes, come on, be nice. And Dino says, like, yeah, I should be nice. He controls all the comedy now. I should be nicer.
Hey, that was true in 2008 or whenever those DVDs came out.
Yep. But also, yes, guest stars aplenty in the show. John Ritter, George Wendt, 80 Miles, Joe Latrulio, Andy Daly, Sally Jesse Raphael, and who they are savage to. The episode after she appears in the show is the one where they try to make the snake vomit, and eventually they do when he puts up a picture of Sally Jesse Raphael.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Hey, that segment with her is great, but I assume maybe she was hard to work with or something, or she didn't get it.
Smigel hated her programming and felt that she was just put it his way, he said she was a whore who just wanted to be on TV no matter what and would take anything.
Ooh, Jesus Christ.
Yes. Also he had tons of SNL cast members on: Anna Gasteyer, Tim Meadows, Maya Rudolph, Chris Parnell, and Tracy Morgan all appear as voices. Most of those are in either Stedman or the Globetrotters short that's in this one.
You know, this is really good synergy because at the same time, there were the SNL reruns on Comedy Central every day. So you had those every day and then this every week. It was like very nice synergy. I remember, I mean, I was an SNL viewer from like 91 to 2004, the late nights. I would watch the Comedy Central reruns every day, but I was still annoyed that they cut half hour out, but they still included the musical segments. I did not care about those.
Yes, it drove me crazy. Later, as I found out that those musical segments were at the expense of more sketches as I grew older, I knew, like, wait, I lost sketches to see the second song sung by these people. Who cares? Oh, and also, yes, we mentioned the Bob Odenkirk sketches they did as well that were basically just Mr. Show sketches. Scott Adson's in it as well. And then the final episode of the show is one of the most on the eve of 9/11 shows I've ever seen, because it's about jihadi terrorists who suicide explode at places.
Right. Okay. Yes. Again, end of history show. They're on the cusp of the end of history because you're talking about how this show crosses the barrier from 00 to 01. And one of the episodes, like you said, Henry, is them making their 2001 New Year's resolutions.
Yes, yeah. This episode was watched in 2000, right before Christmas, if you watched it new. And yeah, that final episode was never got banned from reruns for a while on Comedy Central after 9/11. I forgot that part of it. I was like, oh wait, yeah, I remember Chinese Day is the one that might be the weirdest to watch, but I was like, oh, it's because the Islamophobia in this just as much as any Asian fears or Asian mockery. But yeah, so it did good ratings, did good enough, but a huge pain in the ass to film, like you said, and it went over budget. He also, though, did say that they started writing scripts for a second season. If you get the DVDs, you can hear Smigel talk through several of the stories they had pitched out for it. But Comedy Central did not want to see the size of the budget grow anymore. And also, Smigel thought that he had landed additional funding from an unnamed Canadian comedy channel that would like co-finance it, but then it fell through at the last second. Apparently, partially, I think it was that Smigel, at this point, a very successful comedy writer, a successful comedy writer, soon to be a very successful one. I think that he's like, I am not going to cut my budget to do a thing that is already like losing me money as a passion project. Like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I said up front that they've done all they could with this premise. I think maybe there was a little bit of gas left in the tank for more ideas with Wonder Shows, and clearly by the end of the second season they resented that you wanted more and were trying to alienate you away as much as possible with the final few episodes. With this one though, I do feel like there was more to be done, but I understand why. But this was also a show that would follow South Park. And I was looking at the air dates. What aired before this was the South Park episode of Very Crappy Christmas, which we covered on What a Cartoon 3 years ago. So you could actually recreate the night and then listen to our episodes back to back.
That's awesome. Wow, that's good find, Bob, man. Yeah, no, though the last two episodes of Wonder Shows are not shows. They're not episodes, they're pranks.
Yeah. I mean, Horse Apples was one of them, correct?
Yes.
And one of them was just a Clarence, all Clarence episode, which was too much. That was too much for me.
Yes, yeah. The prank episode that was the finale of the first season, Patience, is one of my all-time favorite prank episodes of TV there ever has been.
Absolutely. Patience rules.
Comedy Central, though, they're not going to renew it. They banned the 8th episode after 9/11. Quickly falls into the background of rerunning on Comedy Central with limited advertising. For some years, to fans like us, it felt like a lost classic where you could only see people like Bob uploading the great sketches alone online. But then I would say near the end of the TV on DVD boom of 2008, that's when they finally were able to get this on DVD.
Yeah, it felt like as long as you were in the aughts and not the 2010s, everything got a chance to be on DVD, no matter how small. Even like the Comedy Central shows we talked about before, like Strangers with Candy, former What a Cartoon subject, UCB, those were all released on DVD, although the third season of UCB took a very long time to come out.
I think if Robert Smigel wasn't by 2008 one of the biggest names a big name into comedy insiders and a very popular writer and performer, I don't think this would have gotten put on DVD, especially with all the licensed songs. I believe all of them still on the DVD. And also it's uncensored, but they had to re-record the lines because they couldn't find the original files unbleeped. So basically every actor just copied their way of saying filthy words.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this because I've never heard it unbleeped.
Oh, also tons of commentaries, tons of deleted scenes. Unbelievably, at the time of this recording on Amazon, you can still get it for $14. So not out of print. But the one thing missing is from this episode. So if you're going to watch this, either watch it on your DVD and then pull up the Harlem Globetrotters short that's on the SNL YouTube channel, or do what Bob did and just find it on YouTube in the complete episode or on Internet Archive.
Yeah, and the rips are fine. They're just TV quality rips from the 2000s, but it's basically all you need. But yeah, it's so nice the DVDs are out and still available, which is shocking. Maybe they won't be after all of our listeners buy them up.
And Robert Smigel is doing great. He works on pretty much every Adam Sandler production at Happy Madison. He's a co-writer on that new Lizard movie that just came out on Netflix. He is an extraordinarily wealthy comedy writer who still gets to, whenever he feels like it, do triumph the insult comic dog wherever he wants to. A lot of it now lives on Colbert because Conan's not around anymore to be a platform for Triumph stuff. That is where he did a thing where he multiple times he has pranked the loathsome turd Ted Cruz, but that, including the one you may vaguely remember where he sort of snuck around Congress and conservatives, watchdogs tried to clutch their pearls and say this is just the same as January 6th.
Yes, yeah, by infiltrating some property with a dog puppet.
Yes, yeah. So Triumph still making headlines. He's released multiple albums, an Adult Swim show, Hollywood Squares appearances. He's done it all. And yes, Smigel has still stayed very active in cartoons, even though his stuff on SNL has stopped pretty much. He's working on tons of things. And also, I should say he's very active in autism charities, including the You know those occasional specials on Comedy Central called The Night of Too Many Stars? Those were his. He headed them up in part because his own son was diagnosed early in childhood with on the autism spectrum, and he has been trying to advocate and do charities for autism and helping kids with autism in schools and other places.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
He's a man who gives both in terms of filthy puppet comedy and charity for great causes.
And meanwhile, J.J. Settlemeyer, he doesn't work so much with Smigel these days, but he still works with Colbert a good deal, I think, even to this day. If you remember from the Colbert Report, Tech, Jensen, and Alpha Squatsev, and those are J.J. Settlemeyer ones.
Oh, yeah. His sci-fi kind of like L. Ron Hubbard-y character.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, Smigel still at it, and he'll do any interview and be like, oh, I'll do the Triumph voice right now. You want me to do it? I will do that. But that's where we're left off with TV Funhouse for right now. Why don't we take a break and then get into the truly secular holiday spirit of Christmas Day?
They can eat in Chinatown and drink their sweetest wine. They can drink Barbra Streisand on the streets they cruise. Christmas time for the Jews. They can gang up on the Quakers who played for the Lakers. They can do what they want, even blow up Madonna. Get a chance to drive a tractor, win on Fear Factor. See Fiddler on the roof with actual Jewish actors. Now they're really in the party going at the door. Circumcising grateful squirrels in the city. Or cricket nights in the bar knowing they can't lose. Christmas time for the Jews. Now it's nearly 10:30. Yes, it's time for bed. Daily Show rerun, dancing in their heads. Maybe next year they'll learn how to hold their booze. Christmas time for the Jews. Christmas time for the Jews. Don't get sick now. Christmas time for the Jews.
Looks great from here. Oh, Christmas tree, you stand in verdant beauty. We'll be right back.
The Washington Post calls TV Funhouse a giddy, goofy, gross ride.
You're out of your mind. Leaking is way better than sneaking. There's no comparison.
What about family?
TV Funhouse. The critics like it. Wednesdays at 10:30, only on Comedy Central.
Hi, it's me, Jesse Tyler Ferguson. In case you haven't heard, and I don't know how that's possible, you're obviously not seeing my Instagram stories, but I have a podcast. I know. I didn't think there was enough podcasts, especially podcasts hosted by actors. So here I am. It's called Dinners on Me, and it's actually pretty special to me. It combines two things that I absolutely love, eating and connecting with people. So in each episode, I take an old friend or a new friend out to a fabulous meal, and as we break bread, we dive into everything from imposter syndrome and mental health to being a new parent and navigating new relationships. It's fun because you truly get to be a fly on the wall for some really intimate conversations. So please, pull up a chair, join us. You can listen to Dinners on Me wherever you get your podcasts.
You've got questions? O'Reilly Auto Parts has answers. Need a pro you can trust? We've got that too. No matter what you need, our professional parts people have the training and expertise to help you do things right. Deep automotive knowledge. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hey everybody, it's Henry here, and I hope you're having a good time under the mistletoe with your tail.
Hey everybody, it's Bob Mackey, and I'm currently hopped up on Christmas cheer. Check out my pupils.
And thanks to everybody for enjoying us all year long for this special holiday episode as well, where we're digging into TV Funhouse, one of our favorites. And we cannot do this as our full-time jobs to talk about a ridiculous, completely forgotten Comedy Central animated series if it weren't for the wonderful supporters at patreon.com patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
That's right. If you want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and there's something in it for you, because for $5 a month, you'll get a bunch of stuff. You'll get all the episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, and also access to over, at this point, 150 miniseries episodes covering things like Futurama, King of the Hill, Mission Hill, The Critic, and Batman the Animated Series. And that $5 a month also gets you regular monthly episodes of both Talking Futurama and Talk King of the Hill. And the second you sign up, you'll get access to all of that stuff we've done for the past 6+ years instantly. Like I said, it's over 150 podcasts waiting for you at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And Henry, there is a $10 level as well. When people sign up for that, they get the $5 stuff. But what else do they get on top of that? I hear it's one really, really long podcast every month.
You hear correctly, Bob, and if you listeners want to have a happy holidays, you're going to want to hear last month's brand new What a Cartoon Movie podcast, where we each month talk about an animated feature film. The most recent one was The Muppet Christmas Carol. You got to hear a little bit of that in the free feed here, but if you want to hear the entire 5 hours of us going deep into the history of both the Charles Dickens original and then scene by scene in one of our favorite Muppet movies of all time, you need to head on over to the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and you would get 5 whole years worth of back catalog, 60 What a Cartoon movies at your fingertips. And you'd get this month's, that's coming very soon, us going into The Emperor's New Groove from 2000, a great Disney classic and one with a very interesting backstory to it. You will get that and everything else we've done, everything from Akira to a Goofy movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse to Beavis and Butthead to the Universe, and our longest podcast ever, 6.5 hours about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, not a second wasted. You want to hear all of that. You will see for yourself everything you are missing out on at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And if you've never joined Patreon before, it is so easy to sign up. And once you sign up, you can use your podcasting app or device of your choice to download our bonus podcasts and listen to them alongside of your free podcast as part of your podcasting lifestyle. And if you have a smart device, there's an app that Patreon has for any of your smart devices, and you can listen to our bonus content that way as well. But no matter what way you do it, it's so easy to access the many, many hours of content waiting for you behind the paywall at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So thanks again for listening this week, folks. And now, if you want to relieve some of Tingles' Christmas tension, give a listen to the rest of this week's podcast.
When you were a kid, cartoons were on Saturday mornings, and they were good, clean, and wholesome. You're not a kid anymore.
As a superhero, I have no time for romance in my life. I'm married to crime fighting.
Oh, Wonder Man.
Comedy Central's TV Funhouse, because you're not a kid anymore. Wednesdays at 10:30 after South Park, only on Comedy Central.
Everyone stay up and play for the last cartoon show of the day. TV Funhouse coming through with animals that pee and poo and about adventuring out in space or playing with string. You did your homework, thereby earning one last show before you turn in. Last chance to be entertained. Sleep is good, but TV helps your brain. TV Funhouse.
And we are back. You got to hear the classic TV Funhouse theme song. It is such a bop. I love Anna Pal's Adventuring. But you're not going to see the... Oh, actually, no. The line of, you've done your homework, thereby earning one last show before you turn in.
Yes. Last stop to be entertained. Last time to be entertained. Sorry. But I do have a very vivid memory of watching this. It's weird how sometimes you'll have a memory of, like, I know exactly what I was doing while this was airing. And I remember watching that South Park and this while playing my Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Color re-release of Dragon Quest II. I was playing that. I was getting ready for my first semester of college in January of 2001. And I was thinking, I think things are going to be okay. And as I was looking at TV Funhouse and then glancing down at my new PS2,
man, I definitely remember watching a South Park while playing those Dragon Quest titled Dragon Warrior at the time. on my GBA, and I was like, wow, this is so fancy and new now. But and that was, of course, when you had to change out batteries in a Game Boy Advance if you didn't have the plug-in thingy for recharging.
Now, it was very easy to watch this while playing Dragon Quest II because most of that game is like random battles and then just hitting the A button over and over and over again until you're back on the map screen.
I wanted to do a little aside about this because Christmas and Smigel are very closely related. He is a big holidays guy. I have a tiny Christmas meets Robert Smigel history here to start out because he is a Jewish man who loves secular Christmas traditions. He really, really does. As he said in multiple interviews I found, he is one of the guys who helped popularize a lot of comedy about Hanukkah being a crappy Christmas equivalent that Jews tried to popularize to be like, well, we have Hanukkah around the same time, like Hanukkah Harry, a classic joke about how Hanukkah is lame compared to Christmas. He wrote that sketch, the original one.
Was he behind the Hanukkah song? Because we were just discussing off the air that Lunch Ladyland has 4 writers, one of which is Bob Odenkirk.
Yes, yeah, because that was on one of the Sandler CDs, it made Bob Odenkirk lots of money. Because of that. But yeah, so it is complicated. I wish I could just say he is a co-writer on the Hanukkah song, but he technically isn't. So basically, Hanukkah song is 1994. That's when Smigel's working on Conan. So technically, he wasn't in the writer's room for this on SNL. But him and Sandler did a million sketches about Jewish people and Hanukkah. And also, in 1994, he did co-write the Thanksgiving song, which basically is a prequel to the Hanukkah song.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
The Hanukkah song was co-written with Ian Maxtone Graham and previous Talking Simpsons interview guest Lou Morton.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, you're right about that. Now, you just put memories of the Thanksgiving song in my head. Thanksgiving is a special night. Jimmy Walker used to say dynamite. That's right.
Happy Thanksgiving. I didn't listen. I'm going to have to catch up and listen to it today. I didn't listen to it yesterday. Today's Black Friday when we're recording this.
Yes. I did not eat turkey in a big brown shoe. I'm sorry.
So, but I think technically I would say Smigel is at least one of the silent parents of the Hanukkah song, and he would be a credited co-writer on sequel Hanukkah songs as well as a writer on the movie based on it, 8 Crazy Nights, which, by the way, the Hanukkah song is just so funny because to, a lot of non-Jewish comedy nerds, it's how they learned a lot about Jewish people in the media. And it's just so funny that it became just like a beloved holiday song. But technically it is just Smigel making fun of the fact that people love to list who are Jewish celebrities. And just like, well, he's Jewish and that guy's Jewish.
Hall of Famer Rod Carew.
Yes. And in every updated one, they still sing O.J. Simpson, still not a Jew. And then they have a new line.
Yeah, I forgot. Like, it's been a while, but I forgot the point of that song is listing who is Jewish.
Yes, yeah. But in a positive way, though, it could, yes. I think part of the naughty fun they're having with it is of like, this could be seen as, if done by non-Jewish people, as an evil list of all the Jews in the media. But it's celebratory, like, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. No, all 3 Beastie Boys. I think that was the one that got the biggest cheer. I remember that. All 3 Beastie Boys. Now only 2 Beasties remain, sadly. But yeah, so not only was he involved in all of those things, but also he co-wrote Hanukkah Harry, and also one I had totally forgotten about until looking this up was the Assimilated Jews Christmas Carols album, which Al Franken plays Henry Kissinger, who's saying, here's the carols that assimilated Jews can sing with only a little change to it. And Smigel joked in this interview saying, Christmas carols are so much better than Hanukkah songs, he accurately adds, before offering a reminder that many great Christmas carols were actually written by Jews. So, yeah.
It's true.
After this, he did 2 more great Christmas sketches for SNL. The Narrator Who Ruined Christmas, which was the one right after 9/11.
Yes.
And I think my favorite, Christmas Time for the Jews, which was sung by Darlene Love, and it is just a list of the things Jewish people in New York do when all of the Christians are off eating Christmas food.
Now I'm going to look up all of these for the holidays to watch with my wife.
But yes, he credits though the new writer Greg Cohen for coming up with the idea of this episode or the main plot for the Annapals. And Greg Cohen would go on. He was from Conan. He'd leave after this show to write for King of the Hill, American Dad, and Eagleheart. So big name guy. But yes, I feel like Dino Stamatopoulos maybe Tommy Blacha are the only Christians writing on this Christmas episode.
Probably not practicing.
No. So after the opening, which is a whole lot of fun with the Annapals, we then start the episode with how much they loved having Doug go out. Though by the middle of the show, they decided Doug shouldn't wear pajamas. It should just be his underwear, and he stands in his underwear in the middle of Times Square.
It's a great, again, it's the idea, like pushing a funny idea further where it's funny if there's a series of snapshots of him in his underwear, pajamas, buying the topic of the show and bringing it to the studio. But the joke is, and of course you're going to watch this, but the joke is he is frozen, but everything else is moving around him. So like people are stealing from him. Cars are getting mad at him for just having his bike parked while he's frozen on his bike.
Everybody's just staring at him like, what are you doing? Like, also, Dino jokes again in a very naughty boy way. He says, this guy is in the opening of every episode, the vendor who they buy the things from. But he's like, we didn't pay him. He just signed a release and we got to use him. And then Smigel's like, I think we paid him. Like, you can feel like Smigel is looking at the legal rep in the room. He's like, no, we paid him. Yeah.
Hey, that's just great budgeting. And I'm sure the guy loved to be on TV for 8 weeks.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was barely seen anyway. But yeah. Also, note that when he points at the box that says Christmas Day, it is clearly a Hawaiian Day box that they then digitally replaced the word Christmas Day over that one. So
I also noticed some like odd redubbings of Doug, and I'm not sure if that was done for humor, just like a weird redubbing, or because they intended for something else to follow what he said.
That answer is not on the DVDs, but there are some weird ones, especially in this one, in the when he throws to the first cartoon. Yeah, but but they write Doug as a childlike man who does things that are sometimes offensive, but it's because he's a big idiot. Like that's always their perfect cover for doing offensive things.
It is. I mean, Wonder Chosen is a lot harder to. It goes down a lot harder these days. But some of the innocentness of Dale does pave over the racism or the jokes about racism. Where they do a show called Mexican Day, and he's like, "We're gonna meet a real Mexican, so let's order some Mexican food." And he calls TGI Fridays, orders tacos with waffle fries, and says, "Instead of tortillas, can you use pita? I like pita."
I like pita. He's so cute. And then, of course, he says the guy who delivers it is Mexican, who is Puerto Rican. Also in the Hawaiian Day one, he has on his Grampy, who was at Pearl Harbor. And he's like, we're going to have a moment of silence. And then the song is A Moment of Silence.
Oh, I think of the Moment of Silence song again. Every 2 months, a new sketch from the show will like drift from the back of my brain to the front. However brains work.
A moment of silence. Pearl Harbor was a tragedy that's difficult to reckon. That's why we get real quiet and sit still for 20 seconds. It's a moment of silence. A moment of silence. A moment of silence. Don't you say a word. A moment of silence. We'll be singing that. We'll be right back with the moment of silence. A moment of silence.
So yes, Doug arrives in his big stupid elf costume. He looks ridiculous. And that's where the opening scene I have there, which is the first clip, because the very first thing he's like, ring, ding, 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 ding. And then he's just interrupted with, enough! Like, they just tell him, like, shut up! Like, everybody is constantly telling Doug, shut up! Stop talking.
I love, a lot of this will be just explaining why we love these jokes, and I'm sorry if it gets tedious, but I love how the point of this joke is just to point out, like, Christmas songs are just a bunch of nonsense, and then out of nowhere, there will be a line about Christ, and then it's back to the silly nonsense about, like, snowflakes and ice cream and presents and Santa.
Yeah, especially this song turns into pure gibberish of like ging, ging, bing, ging, ging, ging. But yes, here's our first uncensored clip here where Chicky is getting sick of this guy.
Oh,
ho, it's a jing-ting, tingly, ting-ting, jingly, fa-la-la time of year. Ho, ho, 'twas a ding-dong, ring-a-ling, deck and harkling, jing-ting, ting-ting-ting. Christ was born, oh, jingling, ting-ting, jingling, ting-ting, ting-ting, wing, bing, ging.
Enough!
Merry Christmas, Santa pals.
Christmas? Bah, humcunt.
That's humbug. And it's from my favorite Yuletide story, the Christmas episode of Bewitched.
Doug, why are you so happy?
I'm filled with Christmas cheer.
Wow, where'd you get it?
Well, Santa Claus spreads it around everywhere this time of year.
For free?
Where is it? I don't see any.
Well, you can't see it. It's just a ring-ding-tingly feeling you have up your spine.
Really? The spine? Shit.
What do you mean, shit?
What do you mean? How innocently he goes like, what do you mean shit?
Yeah. The Christmas song where it's like, it's a ring ding dingaling jing jing jingling ding ding time of year, and then he just stands like Ramrod straight and goes, Christ was born, and then he goes back to the ring ding dingaling ding. That's the joke that I love in the beginning. This is funny too. I got to get used to hearing these puppets swear.
That I do love how he stands up straight for that. And yeah, they're getting sick of him. Though normally they'd have left the show by this time or said like, you get started without us. Do that without us. But this time they've realized that they can hurt Dale and take from Doug to be happy and leave him alone. Also, the Bewitched episode he's referring to, I'm guessing, is season 4's humbug not to be spoken here of Bewitched.
I assume this song is not to be found in that episode.
No. Meanwhile, we got Hojo the Turtle. That's John Glazer, who always takes the pipes in a truly disgusting manner, who flies out of the toilet covered in shitty paper. Yes. Yeah.
It happens so often, but I just love like the wet thwap whenever he just shoots out of the toilet and lands on one of the other puppets. And he's always covered in like bits of things.
Also, they joke that when they have like Whiskers stroking his chin, they joke on the commentary like, we tried to give them distinct personalities, and Whiskers was the planner.
Yeah, that is, I guess, Whiskers like something, huh?
Yeah. And I also like that they say like, tap into his spine, huh? And it's a literal spinal tap is what happens to him. And this is where Doug, again, I like that in this little clip here, Doug does feel pain, but it doesn't change him at all.
Shit.
What do you mean, shit?
We could make a fortune.
Silly.
Maybe we can tap into his spine. Yeah, Christmas cheer.
Now hold still, Doug. This is going to be very painful.
Is it?
Yep.
Be sure to get it all, Doc.
Don't worry, Hank. There's plenty for everybody.
Here it comes.
Ooh, pretty.
Get your face away from that cheer. We need it pure.
Uh-oh. My leg's starting to get a little numb.
That's gotta be a good sign.
Hey, Doc. I'm planning on going caroling in an hour. Is that okay?
I wouldn't, because I'd be paralyzed. Hokey pokey, that's it.
Come on, guys. Let's go to my place and figure out the best way to drop this junk.
Gee, kids. It sure feels great to be giving on Christmas. Now enjoy this Christmas classic.
So, yeah, to make the Annapals not completely irredeemable, Doug is only temporarily paralyzed after this.
Yes, at least there's that. But yeah, they steal his spinal fluid, which is pink, just pink juice. And also, as he's watching them maim him, they're like, "Hey, don't breathe on it too much either." And also just like, I wouldn't because I'd be paralyzed. But yes, the Annapals have abandoned him. That's where we get the very obvious ADR of, now enjoy this Christmas classic. And boy, oh boy, is this a Christmas classic.
Yes.
Though I didn't know what it was referencing.
Neither did I. Even when I uploaded the original, I think it was every year Riff Tracks does Christmas shorts. And I think one year they did the source material that this parody is based on. And it was then I was like, oh my God, this thing I love is actually a parody of something I've never heard of. But I enjoyed the thing as it was without knowing the source material. But then the source material is also very charming.
I did not know the source material for the longest time. I knew, even though we both watched every classic episode of Mystery Science Theater 800 times, and they would occasionally do jokes of if 3 people, especially 3 puppets, appeared on screen or bad claymation, they would say, I'm Hard Rock, I'm Coco, I'm Joe. But you wouldn't, I had no clue where that was from. But if you grew up in Chicago or the surrounding environs, like, the Wisconsin, clearly the people in Wisconsin and Minnesota who wrote for Mystery Science Theater, they also saw it. It was tradition to be played on WGN. It was originally played, I believe, on the Gary Goose Show, and then it moved over to the Bozo the Clown Show, which is also kind of what they're parodying on this, too. I mean, not exactly, but, a guy hosting cartoons. And every year they would play Hard Rock, Coco, and Joe to the point that it became a beloved Christmas tradition for every Chicagoan, generations of Chicagoans, because it debuted in 1951. That's how long it was around.
Very old. It predates Gumby in terms of stop motion. Like, not knowing what this was in 2000, I thought, well, I understand that it's supposed to be emulating old stop motion from the boomer era, and I get it. But now, if you go back and watch the original, you can see, like, oh no, they're going for a very specific kind of crappier stop motion where the techniques are not as advanced. It's not as good as the Rankin Bass stuff that we watched a lot as kids. But then you notice, like, oh, this is pitch perfect. They get everything correct, like the very cloying, syrupy female narrator. And the tune of the song is exactly the same. I assume this is a public domain short, so they can just steal it.
At the very least, the song is public domain. Also, I learned about the original Hard Rock, Coco, and Joe that it was mainly designed and animated by Chinese-American Hua Ming Chang.
Wow.
And he is famous for working on the original Star Trek designs for the Tricorder and the Gorn and several other classic Star Trek things.
That's great because, I mean, the Rankin Bass stuff was all done in Japan. I didn't know this was also a non-American production.
Yeah, similar to about how every classic Christmas carol or classic Christmas tune was written by Jewish men. Here we find out a lot of the classic animation we watched as kids, stop motion, was done by Asian Americans.
Now, Henry and I are very Christmas pilled. We enjoy Christmas a lot. So I stand as an outsider for these comical views at bad Christmases or how Christmases make everyone awful, because that's not my perspective, and I actually am lucky enough to have never experienced that. But I do remember, like, when I was at someone else's place for Christmas, this happened a very long time ago. It was my girlfriend at the time. Their family wasn't getting along, let's say, and I came over for Christmas, and the eldest son threatened to fist fight the dad in front of me. They go off somewhere. The mom is crying at the table in front of me, and I'm just sitting there with her, and I'm like, oh, I guess this is what people are talking about when we see those bad Christmas things.
I identify more with this, though I didn't have anything like that for Christmas, but it was these lines of awkwardness and anxiety and how one bad bill can send your dad. You're like, basically this is written by Dino Stamatopoulos mainly with Greg Cohen, that it is about how when you are an innocent child, you do not understand how horrible it is to be your parents and why they like, oh, why did mommy and daddy yell at me? It's like, because their lives suck right now.
Yeah, like, even though I can't identify with the bad Christmas angle, I know I'm very lucky when it comes to that hate. And also, if you think I'm being privileged, my dad left me when I was a child. So leave your comment at home. But anyway, I do like the perspective where it's just like, we're letting you into the secrets of the adult world, and you should never know them as a kid.
Yes, yeah, that's part of the fun of the truly dark fun of this of seeing childhood is ruined too, of just seeing the children having fun and then their fun is stopped, their innocent fun destroyed by forces that are entirely unjust and unfair. It's well, here I'm dropping in the song right here.
Now listen, my children, and you shall hear of someone who brings certain feelings once a year. It happens each winter, you'll hear his name mentioned. Tingles the Christmas tension.
Yo-yo-di-dee-dee, awkwardness and anxiety. Yeedly-doo-dee-dee tension.
I'm Tingles, the Christmas tension.
Now Tingles appears on the 23rd, disguised as a phone bill your home he's entered. He leaps out from hiding up into the air, sprinkling tension dust round everywhere.
A dash can make Daddy a walking time bomb. He'll fly off the handle and yell at your mom. A smidget for Mom when Dad wants to snuggle.
Can make Yuletide sex quite a struggle. Tingles is there at the office celebration, inflating reminders of last night's frustration when Dad sees an intern that he's never noticed.
Joe from sales says,
I'd sure like to fill all her quotas.
And then for you know it, oh, Christmas is here. Relatives gather, drink, and look severe.
And you kids may wonder sometimes when you play why your parents can't take it around Christmas Day.
It's all thanks to Tingles and his merry bag of dreams that turns whispers into screams.
On Grandma, on Grandpa, on drunk Uncle Otto, on Cousin Kate with her little out-of-wedlock mulatto.
Spoon, mini screw, and esky, pesky, peshin'.
I'm Tingles, the Christmas tension.
Oh, you let your kids do that? Says old Auntie Rose.
And Mom's mother-in-law looks down her nose.
Now you children, so happy and bouncing with glee,
Hurry for surprises from your family.
now Christmas is over, but kids, don't you fear. Tingles will be back spreading his vibes next year.
He must make his way so we can all give attention.
2 mobiles the day after Christmas depression.
Yodely doodle doodly dent, emptiness and disappointment. Yodely Tingles and mobiles too. Scoobly scoobly.
I mean, every part of this I love. There's another reason why I've considered doing Moral Oral as like producing that episode, but literally I feel like I can't do Moral Oral without being like very sad or very personally exposed on it in a way I don't feel as this isn't 2008 podcasts anymore. I don't feel like.
I mean, I do like some parts of Moral Oral. I like how it escaped the Davy and Goliath parody origins, but at a certain point I'm like, I thought this was a comedy. What's going on here? It just felt like too much therapy on the screen, and I was just like, this is not what I signed up for. And I know like it was an interesting experiment that the network hated, so I appreciated it that at least, but maybe it went too far in that direction.
Dino did go very far in that direction. But yeah, I mean, especially the stuff with Oral, his mom and dad feel kind of, though my mom is not like Oral's mom all that much. I would say my mom is not dead inside like Oral's mom on the show, but yes, in general though, this feeling of like looking back, this also does feel like Dino as a writer is looking back on like, oh, why were my Christmases like crappy? Or why did my mom yell at me at this party? And it's because they are being destroyed by Tingles, the Christmas tension that is in the air with his tension dust everywhere.
Hey, it was a good season for elves named Tingle because Majora's Mask came out a few months before.
Wow, man, they're like also. Other things I love in this, that so it sees that the dad, he'll fly off the handle and yell at your mom, and then at night when he's like, hey, let's move on from this, let's have sex, and she's like, fuck you. And then the look on his little claymation face as he's sexually frustrated and then cutting to the next night where he's going to decide to be unfaithful is just like, oh, it's too real and too awful.
Yeah, it is like just a slice of Moral Oral, a digestible slice, I think, but there's still like fun animation. I love the songs. I love the song again. The line he turns whispers into screams is just like one of the greatest, darkest lyrics I've ever heard. And as much as I've had good Christmases as far as Christmases go, but I do identify with Moples, the last man we see in this short.
Oh yes, yeah. That's what took it from great to all time for me. Like during the depression part, they reveal what his infidelity was. He didn't even have sex with the intern. He just he groped her at a party. So, or it was just like first or second base stuff. So he that's part of his sadness. Like he destroyed his marriage for nothing. Like even something that small. And meanwhile, his wife is just thinking about how all her in-laws are judging her, and just this feeling of like I felt that awkwardness at family parties too, of like, oh, everybody's judging me. I have to act out, and then you do something you regret because you're mad that you think everyone's judging you at a party.
I think I never had this experience because my mom is the youngest by a great deal of years, and like everybody, her brothers and sisters all moved away, so the only family nearby was my grandma, and we only saw my grandma like every day anyways, so there was never a big family gathering in my entire life.
See, big family gatherings, they some didn't go so well, mainly because my dad would do things like this, or he would do things like in this episode, I'd say. But okay. Anyway, yes, that's when Mopo's the day after Christmas depression comes in. I love him too. He's great. To know when Christmas is over, it gave a name to the feeling of like, oh, Christmas is over. This isn't fun now. School is coming back soon, or work is coming back soon.
Put all the fun things away.
Especially like emptiness and disappointment. And what other Christmas sketch show that you would see on television back then would end with an on-screen suicide?
Oh, yes, that's true. I couldn't tell who that was. Was that the father killing himself?
I took it to be that, but it's so far away and so fuzzy, like you can't tell. And it's a different puppet because they're filmed at a different size ratio, too. I think it was. I think Christmas ended with the father killing himself after in shame for his infidelity.
Tingle's one of the best. Even if you don't watch this episode, look at my YouTube clip. I make no money from it, but it has 39,000 views for some reason.
And it ends with scoobily, scoobily, scoo over all that. It's and yeah, watch them side by side. You will truly appreciate how hard they worked on it. On the commentary, they say they actually did too good a job, and they said, like, make this crappier. It needs to look shittier like it did in 1951. But so that's Tingles and Christmas Tension, my favorite sketch, one of my favorites ever. Then they cut to Chicky at home. The joke with Chicky is that he hates his wife and children. Like, in multiple episodes, including this one, he does not care that they die.
And he has hundreds of children, too.
Yes. Also, in the first episode, one of the very first jokes is Chicky is complaining he can't have sex because his wife's always on the rag, which means laying eggs.
Oh, okay.
And that's when he places ice on his crotch, and these puppets cannot have a chicken's arm grab ice out of a freezer and put it on a crotch. It just does not work. They do their best, but that's part of the fun. It's so crappy looking.
They cut around it. One thing I like about this show, and I think it does go all the way back to Cluckin' Chicken, is Smigel is also into being very observational about our often uncomfortable relationship with animals, especially when we have to kill them. The sketch with the veal calf and like how to decorate the veal box is super dark, but it's just like, this is where veal comes from. I'm making you aware of there's like a baby in a box that they murder. Have fun with this sketch.
Yeah, there's also the recurring restaurant they go to where like you eat what you are.
Yeah, Sames.
Yeah, that's there's of course the dog and cat are eating Chinese food for the joke in that.
It was the year 2000.
Yep, but also in a very year 2000, or I guess no, this one aired in January 2001. In the Goulet episode, Chicky also screams, "Monogamy is for fags!" Which I was like, Jesus Christ. That was another like shocking line to hear.
Chicky,
that was my husband was like, Jesus. Doesn't this have a little of the feel of bachelors making fun of their married friends, just saying like, I mean, they literally do a whoop.
Yeah, it is fun to watch like the big puppet arm and Foggy go.
But yes, this is when they start their search for chicken.
We had to go pick up some ingredients so Whiskers could make some of his famous Christmas yogurt.
Oh, okay.
Honey, which kid has the chemistry set again?
Devin.
Great. Come on, Whiskers and gang. Christmas yogurt. La, la, la. Snow is falling on the yogurt. No, this kid's into snowboarding. Must be down the hall. No, this one's into pro wrestling. Metallica? Jesus, let's go. Move it. Back up, back up.
Astronauts?
Out! Nope, this one's into The Simpsons.
How many chicks do you have, Chicky?
186.
And all boys.
Tell me about it.
I don't know what's going on with that Simpsons reference.
I think it is just like, this is what the kid likes. I mean, they did draw a chicken version of The Simpsons. I guess that's the joke, but it's just like, well, what are boys into? What, pro wrestling, The Simpsons, all the things I was into then. Though none of these kids like video games.
Yeah, I guess, but they can't do it with their little wings. They can't play the games. Now, one thing I thought was a clever touch is that all the chicks are boys, which we view chickens in terms of their utility and use for us. And baby boy chicks are basically sent to the death chamber immediately.
Oh.
Think of that when you're eating your karage.
Man, geez. I don't know if Smigel is a vegetarian, but I was feeling slightly uncomfortable eating some meat yesterday on Thanksgiving. I mean, I still ate it, but...
Great.
Yes, yeah. So all those chicks that get like sexed and I've seen on like farming videos, the boys that get tossed aside, they're just done, huh?
Yeah, they never say like where the boys are going. I love that Chicken of Tomorrow sketch for MST3K because like they keep saying like where the chickens are going next, and Mike goes, to be killed, to be killed, to be killed.
Oh, yes. Well, hey, at least the chickens on this show, all the live chicks in this, they got to have a little bit of stardom before they probably went back to a farm to get killed.
I hope this brief brush with fame let all these chickens live full natural lives.
I also like hearing Chicky sing Christmas yogurt, la la la. We got to Doug trimming the tree, which we see that he is very close to the ground. And he also is given a soccer ball as a gift, which is a cruel gift to give a man who cannot use his legs. This is when we meet Zabu, who is always chasing his tail. My favorite joke with him is in the last episode. That's where he gets the sexy girl tail costume. So it's a puppet wearing a giant tail outfit.
Yes. No, I love how all the Zabu stuff is just like Warner Brothers Wile E. Coyote gags. In the first one, he's like built this trap, and he ends up getting caught in it while demonstrating like all you do is put your little tail in. And it like grabs him. And it's funny because whenever the puppets have to do anything advanced, it's clearly just a man like holding the puppet and guiding it into something.
Yes, yeah, it's so bad. Smigel says, I think he said the most uncomfortable puppet to perform was Zabu because that giant blanket over you and having to work the tail at the same time. He said it was the least fun he had with it.
It's just a super funny image when you go to the TV Funhouse and he's just like spinning.
Yes,
the puppet is just spinning on a rod.
No one's hand is in it. You're just watching. They pressed on a spinning thing that has a puppet attached to it. But this is when Zabu makes his first attempt on the tail.
Hark the herald angels sing. Come on, Zabu, sing with me. It's a holiday.
No days off until I catch the tail.
Hark the herald. Come on, angels sing. Glory to the newborn king.
I can't do it. He's getting away.
Oh, well. Here's some more fun holiday Christmas stuff.
Places to look for your Christmas presents.
And that's all visual, so I'm not going to be playing it.
Yeah, it's all leading up to the best joke. I like the potentially dangerous things they're advising kids to do, and some of them are very funny. Like I enjoy how casually that kid just tosses a gun out of the gun rack.
Doesn't care. Yeah.
All these kids are 30 now, by the way. All these children are 30 now.
Oh God. I love the kid who tears. The kid is so excited to tear open the bread to find the toy, and they're showing kids that inside is a toy. Like that's, or smashing into the wall. That is so good.
I mean, they wrote the best joke first, and I think worked their way backwards. But the best place to find where your toy is hidden is inside your favorite toy. Yes. And the kid just brings down a brick and smashes this toy truck open.
This also with the live action kids, which they said they had, that was also very expensive to get a bunch of kid actors for stuff. It reminded me of another of my favorite sketches, which is in the 7th episode. It's Safety Gang, with like 4 kids who are running around romper room style telling kids how to be safe, but it's all in very confusing ways and pointing sharp things directly at their eyes. And also it's like, but how do you film it? The kids actually do have to like run down very steep stairs, and then put their head right. They say like, keep your eyes out, and they put their eye right by a really pointy thing. It's crazy.
I'm sure it was all in-camera trickery or just very permissive parents.
Oh, also, they keep saying things that confuse kids, like, I always never drink window cleaner. And also, that was mainly filmed by 80 Miles, the places to find your Christmas presents, who he worked on a ton of classic comedy we all know and love. So, yes, we then go to the nerd chick who is going to be helping them. I think this is John Glazer doing the voice for this one, I think. This is where Chicky doesn't give a single thought to his son burning alive in front of him.
Aha! Where the hell have you been?
Right here, working on my science project.
Well, get lost. We've got grown-uppy things to do.
I'm telling Mom.
No, don't tell Mom. Okay, look. You could stay.
What are you doing? Maybe I can help.
All right. Well, here, look. You see this drippy stuff?
Liquid, yeah.
We need to blah, blah, bloobly, bleed, blah, blue, blah, blay, blay.
Here you are. Grade A powdered Christmas cheer.
Let's snort it.
It's fun to watch puppets snort powder. It's fun.
I do love them playing with the conventions. Like earlier in the show, they had Whiskers the cat. Is it Whiskers the cat?
Yeah, Whiskers.
It's like the spine, eh? And it's like they fade to another scene, and I like how what we need to do is, and it's not even like a stage whisper, not even like silence as Chicky whispers in his ear, just like blah 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 bling bling blah.
Yes. Another of my favorite ones of those is the second part of the Triumph crossover ends with basically Triumph has to perform while his penis is stuck inside a poodle. And then when the poodle busts out on stage and embarrasses him in front of Robert Goulet, then Robert Goulet said, "What are you talking about? She's great." And then they just iris out on the I Love Lucy heart and play an I Love Lucy type thing because they're like, yeah, we just did an Lucy ending.
That's great. Yeah, I can't wait to rewatch all of these. I do like this next little thing where Devin, the little nerd kid, is like talking about how the snorting isn't working. So he's like, I believe freebasing would be better or whatever. And I love how it's just a puppeteer carefully lighting a puppet on fire. It's very awkward. And I like the choice that they make where the chick puppet just stays on fire, does not react. Nobody acknowledges it, and then the scene ends with just pushing in on the burning puppet.
Yes. They're shoving it in your face of how low rent it looks. That's so good.
It's like someone is lighting a candle with another candle. If you've been to church, you would know what that's like. But just like lighting one thing with another, just you could just tell the thing's on a stick, and somebody's just like trying to find the flame while being under it.
Right. This poor little nerd boy burnt to death in front of his father who doesn't care. And just they all go like, yeah, I'm starting to feel it. Yeah.
I've got spaghetti legs.
And this is when they do the, usually once per episode, they would do their version of the Triumph man on the street thing of screaming at people out on the street. Believe it or not, it's even on the DVD. They do have Hazy Shade of Winter. Now, this is not the Bangles version. This is just a new version sung by people in a Bangles type way. And how do they get it? Well, it's because Robert Smigel knows people. Or should I say, he knows Lord Michaels, who knows people.
Because I was like, what is up with this song and why did they choose it? It just was an odd choice. I think it's fun and it fits this scene.
Well, it's because, it's winter, I guess. But it's this song is originally written by Paul Simon, who, if you're an SNL freak, you know that Paul Simon and Lorne Michaels are good buds. So basically, Smigel asked him for it, and he got it for pretty cheap. And then they just cover it in a Bangles style that I believe means they don't have to pay the Bangles for their version of it.
I see. And this is like the rubbing puppets on people segment of the show, where unlike Wonder Shows and with Clarence, where it felt like they were trying to get into altercations with strangers, the people seem to be like weirded out, but they're just like, they're bemused by the whole thing.
I wonder if it was the low rentness of Wonder Shows then, where it's just one guy with a guy with a camera, as opposed to like all these puppets. It looks a little more real, perhaps, or also maybe they're getting people at Christmas time in front of Rockefeller Center instead of instead of, in the park in the middle of the day or waking up homeless people.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I feel like the fact that there's more of them there maybe is making it less likely for people to want to fist fight them.
Though Smigel says their feeling was if they laugh along with it, keep doing it until they stop laughing and get mad. And they did that. Them screaming at New Yorkers with laughing all the way, just screaming. They also love acting with live animals, including the live animals who just stand still or walk away from the set.
I like at one point, like the fogey puppet is just thrown at someone's back.
Yes. Yeah, Smigel goes like, I can't believe we did that. That's a $2,000 puppet we just threw at this old lady. But yeah, so then, like so many episodes, it ends up in an orgy. As well, where everybody's fucking each other. I mean, it also definitely feels like something from Dino's real life where drugs are put onto his penis and then another guy just sucks it off his penis and he's like, hey, all right, go for it.
Yeah, Chicky's up for anything. Now, I lived like an entire lifetime since watching this episode, another lifetime rather, because I was 18 when this aired and now I'm 41, and I did live through my 20s. I will say I did not do anything debaucherous as Dino Stamatopoulos. No judgment there. I now understand, like, this drug humor comes from a real place. Like, when you're at a weird drug party, here's what happens. What happens when you're at the weird drug party and you need more drugs? What happens when you're on drugs and go out into public and have to hide that fact? Nobody knows, but in your head, you're like, everybody knows. Yeah. It's a lot of the stuff from the altered state of Druggachusetts where they'll know the thing about ordering the pizza.
Yeah.
You'll find that here as well. Now I'm saying I lived through my 20s. I only have beer now. That's my only vice. But I have lived similar brushes with the Dino Stamatopoulos lifestyle.
I do love that they don't care that Chicky is just having sex with another man, with a male sheep in front of them. They just go like, we got to get more stuff. And they just leave.
Now, I will say in my wild 20s, it was not orgies. It was like people on various substances watching YouTube videos gathered around a computer.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was kept your pants on, but we all watch YouTube videos together. This is when the Annapals make a rare return to the regular show. And also we get a Wonderful Life reference with me and Bob, big Wonderful Life fans.
Mm-hmm.
Feliz Navidad to all our Latino friends out there. Boy, I'm getting all kind of feeling back in my toes, and a couple of minutes ago, my whole foot twitched in a spasm.
Hey, could you please keep it down? I'm lulling the tail into a false sense of security. Great movie, huh, Tail? Oh no, Uncle Billy misplaced the money. But worry not, my friend. Good will prevail. Are you comfy? More rumbles? Yes?
Wow. Now we're all getting into the spirit of things. And, legs numb again.
Damn, that's the last of it.
Screw it, we got enough. Let's go.
We'll be right back.
Yeah, just as he's getting feeling back, they return to suck out more spinal fluid. But I guess, hey, it works. They're actually drawing Christmas cheer from his body.
It's so sad that he's like, I'm starting to feel my legs again. Oh, no, gone again. Like, paralyzed once more. But you're also hearing Zabu say, oh, no, Uncle Billy misplaced all the money.
You know, back to the part, I made one note where it's like, I think they got footage, I'm surely on accident, but they decided to use it, of a real lamb just like pooping all over the Chicky puppet.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think so. God, those sets had to smell awful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. That's one more story they told, that they said that they had trouble getting their friends to help film it because they thought they didn't name people. They're like, there were friends of ours who were really desperate for work. And then they filmed one episode with us. And when we asked them, like, hey, we're filming again tomorrow. Do you want to come by and help with the puppets again? They're like, no, I'm good. No.
It seemed like you have to just imagine that there are these animals, but then everybody is under them.
Yes, yeah. Have your arm up, surrounded by smelly animals, and then stand all day. It sounds pretty horrible. Yeah. But yes, Doug, you also can appreciate Doug's body hair in a lot of these shots here, too, as they take the spinal fluid. So, But yes, they then come back from the break. We see a sheep vomiting into a toilet. And then I like that when Chicky wakes up next to the other sheep, Chicky is just like, penny for your thoughts. Like, he isn't filled with homophobic fear or a gay panic.
No, he is up for any sort of pleasurable experience, regardless of what anyone says.
And this also reminded me of times where I have done lighter drugs than Christmas cheer, but have been like, okay, be cool. But like realizing he had to go to his Santa job and be like, all right, it's okay. I can get it together.
Yes, the don't freak out, which it just freaks you out even more.
And I assume he murders that cat by eating it. Is the joke there?
Yeah, because Terry the lamb, correct?
Yes, yeah.
He's got to go to his job as Santa Claus, and we cut to him as a mall Santa, who he is a puppet, but all the animals are real. And like this kitten is placed on his lap, and he's like, "What's your name, little girl?" And we cut to his vision, and she's a clod of grass, and she's like, "My name is Delicious Green Grass," and he starts eating the kitten, which is just like a hand closing on a kitten's body, like a hand inside of a puppet.
It's funny too. They say on the commentary, like, I hope that cat's still alive, and then they're like, "Yeah, it's only 2008. It's still alive." Though, of course. Now, unless that's the oldest cat in the world, that kitten is probably not still alive.
But some of the parrots you see are probably still alive from this show.
Oh, yeah. Cut back to some mistletoe comedy as well. And again, I just want to note how many times everybody tells Doug to shut up in this show.
Looky, maybe this mistletoe will get me a Christmas kiss. Plus all the spine sympathy.
Hold still. Stop talking. Well, look where we ended up, Tail.
Two lonely hearts by the mistletoe. You scumbag! I'll tear your heart out and feed it to the dogs!
Here's another thing.
Oh, poor Doug. Yeah, I enjoy all of the Zabu side stories, and again, how they're all just like Warner Brothers. But I now have the image of him in the tail costume.
Yeah,
that you put in my head from I think the last episode you said.
Yeah. I also love hearing Zabu say, "I'll tear your heart out and feed it to the dogs," which a dog saying that is very silly. But yeah, so on the DVD, he says, "Here's another thing," and then it goes to commercial break, or blacks out because this is not on there. But yes, it's time for the Globetrotters. And Bob, you alerted me to a couple bits of info from this too.
Yeah, I mean, well, this originally aired on SNL in December of 98, which you knew. I think it's like the Alec Baldwin episode from that season.
That's whose face you'll see when the sketch starts on the YouTube upload, yep.
But obviously based on the same Harlem Globetrotters cartoon that everybody was pulling from at this time in alt comedy, because there is a UCB sketch that's very, is it Thunderball?
Yeah, it's Thunderball. One of the Thunderball coaches is like, well, I've never coached before, but I did direct several episodes of the Harlem Globetrotters cartoon show.
Yes, and one of the players had to have an afro to like hide a gun in or something like that in case there was a mummy. I don't know. Everybody, like all the people born in 1968 had watched this cartoon. And then that's where all the Harlem Globetrotters stuff in Futurama comes from, is this cartoon.
Right.
They actually used the song that was in the cartoon that was written by Neil Sedaka, which is Bouncing All Over the World. And I looked it up for research. I was like, what is this song? It's too good to be a parody of something. Did they actually use a real song? And yeah, it is from the Harlem Globetrotters album from like 1970. And on a recent airing, I was listening to the song over and over. I was like, this is a great song. And if you look up Bouncing Around the World or Bouncing All Over the World or whatever it's called, I dare you, like, put it on at a Christmas party and be like, oh yeah, they wrote this for the Jackson 5, but they turned it down, but it's a great song. Because it sounds just like a Jackson 5 song if you listen to it.
For sure. No, it's such a fun song about, though it is a guy like saying, I got girls all over the world, and I go bouncing all over.
Yeah, it's basically, I'm a basketball player on tour, and I'll fuck everybody, and I won't date you. But, it's one of those times where I'm listening to something very weird for a podcast, and I'm kind of getting into it, and I'm running an errand, but then I think, like, if a car hits me, and they're like, who was this man? I wonder if what he's listening to will let us know about him. And they hear that song, they're just like, shove him in a ditch. This guy's a freak.
Who is this insane man? He was born over a decade after this song came out.
But I'm going to tell all of our listeners, put on that song at a Christmas party. It's a jam. And nobody has heard it.
A fun note about the Harlem Globetrotters cartoon, which aired for 2 seasons. It was a Hanna-Barbera creation, and it was the first animated series with a mainly African-American cast.
Yes, I remember that coming up on the Futurama. And what I like about this parody is that it plays it really straight, because with the Adult Swim stuff, which I love, their angle was like, okay, here's the character you love, but he's a loser and an alcoholic and everybody hates him and all of his friends are jerks. Here they're like, let's just write it as close to the bad writing as possible with a few little winks to let people know, like, we're doing something here.
The sacrilegious stuff is the closest it gets to dark, but like they're not getting the easy comedy out of like the cartoons are swearing. You don't expect them to swear. Instead, it's them going farther into their bad Hanna-Barbera comedy. Especially hearing, I believe Meadowlark is the guy who keeps saying turkey over and over again.
Yeah. I just remember Curly being voiced by John DiMaggio in Futurama, but a lot of the joke is just these characters are such innocents because they're still the Harlem Globetrotters and still the Hanna-Barbera world that they don't realize how sacrilegious they're being by playing a game of basketball against Joseph and Mary and the Wise Men for the room at the inn.
Yes, it all begins with a Wayback Machine.
What do you mean we got no game today, Curly?
It's Christmas, Meadowlark. Time to eat turkey.
You're the turkey, Curly.
But Meadowlark, Christmas is about the birth of our Lord.
You're the turkey, Gip.
Hey, guys, remember our first Christmas together? We played the City All-Stars. We could go back in time with the Wayback Dial. The Wayback Dial? Now, geese don't lead us on a wild goose chase. It's easy. We'll just go back to our first Christmas together.
Where in Turkey Land are we?
Meadowlark, look. Here's a place we could stay.
Somebody can't spell.
One thing I did notice listening with headphones during my notes is they use the same canned laughter every time, the same like 3-second clip, and it's clearly like Robert Smigel or someone going ha 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 over the existing laugh track. Just somebody just doing a flat ha 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 ha.
I also think it's probably Smigel. Yes, it's such a specific mocking of the worst thing. One of the worst things about those old Hanna-Barbera cartoons was the laugh track. I hate hearing the laugh track even in a classic Scooby-Doo. I'm like, stop with these fucking laugh tracks. Let me know when to laugh. The child watching this.
And then you realize as an adult, like, oh, if the characters pause and there's laughter, that means no one is moving.
Right. God, I love Meadowlark calling everybody a turkey, except for the one that would be a clever thing to say of calling Goose a turkey. He says, where in Turkey Land are we? Like, he can't let go of calling anything a turkey.
And just like how innocent they are, but they're also being very sacrilegious and rude, where they see, I'm guessing, like Aramaic or something written on a sign, whatever the written language was back then, folks. I forget what it's called, but the remark is, somebody can't spell.
Yes.
When they see a foreign language, that's how innocent they are.
So they run into Joseph and Mary. Andy Daly voices Joseph. This is when they do the thing that they do every single episode of the show, the Hanna-Barbera version, which is challenge them to a basketball game. It's all they know how to do. They're like, all right, well, then we're going to play a basketball game for this. Also, how nonchalantly they're like, well, we have a Wayback Machine. It's just like it takes you back. The Wayback Dial. Wayback Machine is Rocky and Bullwinkle, but they just can go back in time for no explained reason. Though this does not use any of the Super Globetrotters seen in the 78 Hanna-Barbera series.
Right, different series. I think that like they had the Three Stooges come back as a cartoon, but they were all bionic. Like the Bionic
Yeah, I think
Stooges.
they were like the Bionic Man, but Super Stooges. Yeah. God, that's terrible. And these were the good cartoons then.
Top of the line.
You'd get worse things if it was Filmation. Like,
or Ruby Spears, yeah.
So... yes, they play their basketball game full of basketball sillies, mixing in manger comedy with all of the regular things that they do, including pretending to be pregnant with the basketball after Jesus is born.
Yeah, just like when they play the generals in real life, they do like a little sketch, but that ends up being the foundation of Christianity because they change the future.
And so Jesus almost wins the game. But that's when they score the final basket with their distraction trick. And this is when the Globetrotters change history.
we've got to hand it to you, Trotters.
Tell you what, Jojo, you guys take the room.
Thank you, Curly.
Hold on. Boy's got to be baptized.
Wait!
These are true sons of the Lord.
Where are you going?
Back to where there's some competition.
Sorry about the mix-up, guys.
Well, we sure learned one thing, Geese. From now on, Christmas is going to be about rest and relaxation.
Behold, and it shall be in the manger that our king, the Harlem Globetrotters, will appear unto you. The Harlem Globetrotters? Thanks a lot, Geese.
So much for rest and relaxation.
And it turns out they live in the Vatican now. The Globetrotters' home is the Vatican.
It's very cute. I just flagged like Tim Meadows as one of the voices I didn't notice the first time.
Yeah, I believe he's Curly. Yeah, I just also love the like so much for rest and relaxation, just as the outline on this long pan out. Like, yeah, it's such a great. I mean, also he's going to baptize Jesus. Like that's
Yes.
so ridiculous.
And it's the old like confetti bucket trick. That is, you'll see it every Harlem Globetrotters show, presumably.
Yes, yeah. If I went to a Globetrotters show and didn't see them fake out the confetti bucket, I'm pissed. I'm pissed off.
If you want to know more, go back to our Futurama episode about Time Keeps on Slippin' on the Patreon, and you'll hear a history of the Globetrotters, and it's still a going concern. And I remember doing the research, and I noticed, like, I could actually see them, and it's not hard.
I should look up when they're next in town, just for a good time. And so we cut back to the Annapals. They're still pretty fucked up. This is when Hank, who is super hateful to gay people, they decide that it's or they're just snorting it up. And this is when the goose remembers that he has a Christmas pageant he's got to go to, but he can't drive, and he has to act like, you drive me. They all take him there. Doesn't it also feel very real? Realistic of like all the dirtbags who are fucked up at the church would be like, be quiet.
Yes. The people, like, if they just shut up, no one would know that they were all high or coming down from something, but they're just, like, too in their own heads and too full of anxiety, so they're just, like, bumbling in and making it very obvious.
Oh, yeah, I guess Trevor Moore had a song like that, didn't he? The High in Church song.
High in Church, yes. R.I.P. That's a great album, the one he released shortly before he died. I think it's just called High in Church.
Kitty History is also a perfect song. I love that song.
I'll take that back. It was like 5 years before he died. I'm sorry. He died pretty recently.
Yeah, it's very sad. Very sad. But this also, we get another reference to our favorite Christmas carol as the ghost of a certain goose shows up.
Who are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past. What was that?
He took the pipes.
Oh.
So are you here to show me what my past Christmases were like?
No. I'm actually showing the future bearded you his past.
Yipes.
That's a beard that you'll be growing in the future. But I'm here to show him your past. The point is, it's a beard.
Man, we gotta quit doing drugs.
Yeah.
Sure do. We're on the way.
No more drugs. But where will we find the strength?
So this is when Dino Stamatopoulos had a duck shit in his mouth. This is during this scene.
That poor man. That's because the entire congregation is real animals and there's only puppets that are the performers there.
So when you see Chicky next to a live duck, he says that he was performing it and then he looked up and saw what was going on, couldn't stop it in time, went in his mouth. And then he said that he basically had to stop filming for about an hour. He's like, guys, I need some time. We can't just keep filming. Give me a minute here.
They worked hard for this show. Now, so I keep going back to this, but it's a Smigel thing of like pushing an idea like to a different world. It's like, well, it's funny enough that they're high in church watching this guy's Sunday school play, this guy's kid's Sunday school play, and not handling it well. And then it's like, well, of course the ghost appears, and it's like this is funny, period. And then it's like, well, no. He's not here for you. He's here to show the future version of you what you're doing now.
Yes. Isn't that so great to come up with the idea of like, what if you were on the receiving end of the Ghost of Christmas Past? Like, no, you're going to meet me in 60 years. I'm showing him then. you.
And unlike in the story, like you can see the ghost and he can talk to you.
And all of them can, not just the goose. Also, like seeing the other characters, or the way he constantly repeats, "It's a beard," because they felt it was not clear it was a beard, so they were like, let's just keep repeating it's a beard.
Yeah, it's a very white beard on a goose puppet.
Also, another good joke they do of observation about religion and mocking Christianity is, I think this starts with the idea of how, like, Jesus is not a white guy with blue eyes, which is how he is presented in many American depictions of Jesus. And so their version of it in the show is the lobster goes to lobster church and the Christ on the cross is a lobster. The dog goes to the dog church, it's a dog Jesus on the cross. Like, it's always a different animal.
Yeah, they all view Christ as themselves, basically.
Yes.
And like a lot of people that find religion, they all turn into giant assholes.
Immediately, yes. So they're all embarrassed. They're all having a bad time. They decide to get clean. But what do they do when they try to get clean? They turn to Jesus Christ. In our final clip here.
Crutches. Whoop. I'm candy-capped.
You are a heathen!
Yeah!
Let's get him, gang!
Huh?
Yeah. Is that what Christmas means to you? Licking and kissing and candy and cheer?
Have you ever thought about the true meaning, Doug? That a duck was born in a manger.
Lobster.
Cat, chicken, turtle, cockapoo.
Hey, look! I'm getting feeling back.
Look, he can walk! It's a miracle!
Miracle! Oh my God!
Jesus has done it again!
Great job, Jesus! Way to go!
Angels we have heard on high.
And weirdly enough, during that the singing of angels we have heard on high, the image of Michael Landon appears. Did they explain that on the commentary?
Just that he was dead and had played an angel on TV.
Oh yeah, he was on Highway to Heaven. Okay, that makes sense because he played an angel. I get it.
So they paid for licensed an image of him and just put his dead face there. But yeah, it's also isn't Angels We Have Heard on High? Isn't that the song they sing before Old Lang Syne in the in Wonderful Life? Or am I thinking of a different Christmas?
I don't recall the singing. I don't recall that. Maybe they do that before Old Lang Syne.
Okay.
Yeah.
But definitely ending a Christmas special or program with singing a song together, that feels, intentionally a reference to Christmas Carol or A Wonderful Life. But yeah, that, like you said, Bob, they are total hypocrites. They have been disgusting this entire time, doing things that are not Christmassy, and then here they come to tell the guy who loves Christmas more than anybody that he's terrible.
They come back to blame their victim.
Yeah, and he starts getting a feeling back in his legs, which they stole from him. And yeah, they sure are pleased with themselves over the line candy-capped.
Yes, they thought that was very clever. Over the credits, I forget what happens in this one, but usually they do the theme song again, but they recap everything that happened.
Yes, yeah, this is the rare one where they do not, because they sing Gloria over the whole thing.
Right. Hank has the solo, right?
Yes, yeah. Which it is pretty funny to see this immobile lobster puppet singing Gloria over Doug's face in the last shot of the episode.
I do really like the lobster puppet because it's not even a puppet. Like, nothing is moving on it. It's just basically a lobster on a stick that's like being shaken around.
Maybe I bet you this is why Paramount Plus has been telling me, like, when I go back in there, hey, do you want to watch Jeff Dunham? Did they know that I watched this show? And they're like, okay, here's Jeff Dunham. You like puppets so much.
There's got to be some, like, you type puppet into one search engine and it informs everybody that is connected to your internet. You want more puppets.
On the commentary, Smigel's defense even is where I think he's like, he didn't want to have an ableist joke, but he's like, oh, well, you see, we could do the candy-capped joke because he's only temporarily handicapped from a comedy thing that happened. We're not making fun of somebody who is like, can't use their legs normally.
I think that's why his feeling comes back every act, just to let you know.
And it's why he can walk in the next episode. A very silly ending after all of this this filthy comedy. But I love hearing characters your lead characters in your show all singing together, that is a perfect ending to me, with no matter what season they are celebrating.
It's nice. You can forget all the ugliness that preceded that event. It's so nice.
And again, all this praising of Jesus is from a bunch of very Jewish writers, mostly.
They enjoy Christmas the most, though.
I learned how to love Christmas from Robert Smigel and his friends.
Mm-hmm.
It was great to go back to, especially for Tingles. I love Tingles so much, but all the cartoons are great. And just rewatching the whole thing and finally taking I think I hadn't watched it since it was new, any of my DVD things. But if you enjoyed this, the DVD seriously is worth it for all of the extras. And it's somehow still cheap and in print. So get it before it goes out of print is what I say.
Yeah, what a find. I forgot this was even on DVD, and I was buying DVDs at this time, so that's great. And yeah, I guess final thoughts on this. I love that it's just this little time in life before 9/11. Yes, we talked about it. We have to. Is your bingo card out? Have you marked 9/11 yet? I think we already mentioned it, so you can stamp it twice. But this perfect time, end of history, where it's every comedy writer you love is working together on this great high concept Comedy Central show with puppets and cartoons and all these fun subversive jokes. And what a time to be playing Dragon Quest II on your Game Boy Color in your child bedroom at age 18.
It felt great. Yeah, I was. You graduated 1 year before me, so I was still I was a senior, and this is how I was spending my senior year. I certainly wasn't under the mistletoe with anybody, but I was watching a puppet try to kiss his tail under the mistletoe.
Hey, that's pretty similar.
Yeah.
You get points for that. So thanks once again to all of you out there for listening to What a Cartoon. And if you want to support our show and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and sign up at the $5 level. You'll get early access, but also access to over 150 bonus miniseries podcasts. These are all full-length podcasts we've done over the past 6+ years. We've covered things like Futurama, King of the Hill, Mission Hill, Batman the Animated Series, and The Critic. And that $5 level also gets you access to monthly new episodes of both Talking Futurama and Talk King of the Hill. And the second you sign up, you get access to our entire catalog of podcasts behind that paywall. Once again, that's over 6 years of content you get for signing up for just $5 at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, and there is a $10 level as well. And when you sign up for that $10 level, you get all the $5 stuff naturally, but then you also get one amazingly long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob's talking about the What a Cartoon Movie Podcast, our premium podcast about an animated feature film once a month, or sometimes about a puppety feature film, which, if you want the other side of the coin from TV Funhouse, you need to hear us talk for 5 hours about The Muppet Christmas Carol, which is so much fun, and it's generally full of all of our talk about Charles Dickens' original book and so many thoughts. Bob did a ton of great research for it. We go super deep into our one of our favorite Muppet movies. And the previous month, we covered the anime classic Project A-ko. And there's so many more 5 years worth of What a Cartoon Movie podcasts. Over 250 hours by my count. And if you like other holiday favorites, I would say listen to last year's one about Tokyo Godfathers, another anime classic set in Christmas in Tokyo. It's really, really good. Or give yourself the Christmas gift of hearing our longest podcast ever, 6.5 hours, about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. All of it's there, and the $5 things Bob mentioned. One more time, check it out, patreon.com/TalkingSimpson.
And I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast is Retronauts. That is a classic gaming podcast all about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts and sign up there for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month. And I have a book out, by the way. It is the Boss Fight Books volume, all about Day of the Tentacle, the classic 1993 point-and-click adventure game. I put together a full-length, extensive oral history on the making of the game, and Boss Fight Books was nice enough to publish it, and you can find that wherever you find books, or go to the Boss Fight Books website, or even places like Amazon. It is the perfect holiday gift, people, and there is still time for Christmas shopping. Henry, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG, or on most other feeds. Do you do Blue Sky? Me and Bob are both on there, as is at Talk Simpsons Pod, at Talk Simpsons Pod. keeps you up to date whenever new podcasts come out, whenever we've got live shows coming your way, and so many other cool things. You stay in the loop if you follow at Talk Simpsons Pod, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, all the places. Follow them there. And if you need an easy-to-explore list of all of our previously released podcasts, including an entire playlist of all of our holiday-themed podcasts, head on over to TalkingSimpsons.com.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you again next time for an extended free preview of our What a Cartoon movie episode all about the Emperor's New Groove, and we'll see you then.
In excelsis Deo.
Take it, Hank.
In excelsis Deo.
There was no room at the inn.
Don't do it, Jesus!
Quiet!
It's not worth it! You get screwed in the end!
Come on, man, you're embarrassing me!
Run, Jesus, run! Look out!